Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the study group. Actually, the pre-show of the study group. We are getting ready for our 220-1002, or what CompTIA also calls their Core 2 A+ study group. We got a study group where the first hour I will be asking you questions. If you are here live, you'll be able to answer those questions live. If you're on the replay, you can follow along with what we're doing. Folks already in the chat room. Hello, chat room. Hi, everybody. Folks from all over. Is my chat working? I think it is. There we go. DC and Virginia and Wyoming and Lauderdale. Welcome. Southern California, New York is here. Arizona. Canada, welcome. CO, guessing Colorado, or you're at the central office. One of those two things. Rhode Island's here. Hello, Detroit. UK's checking in. Dallas. Houston. South Africa, welcome. Oklahoma, North Carolina, Louisiana, Tennessee, Miami, Bangkok, Macon, Georgia, North Carolina, Thailand. There's Jacksonville. Hi, Jacksonville. Jamaica, Costa Rica, Texas. People from all over. Thanks for joining us. We'll be starting here in about 10 minutes. Well, about 9 minutes now. So we're getting there. We've got all 220-1002 questions today. This is our 220-1002 study group. Might as well get this guy going. Let's check our recordings. We are recording down here. We're also recording up here on the live stream. We've got all the cameras set up. You can't see them here, but up here, just above me, there's a big monitor that I have, a big 55-inch television up here that kind of gives me a big view of what's going on. I should probably get a smaller one and I could just put it there, but that's what I have right now. Takes up way too much room. But that's where we are. And that shows all of my cameras look good, so we're fine there. I think I've got everything loaded up here. We're in good shape. We are ready to go. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We just did our 220-1001 2 days ago, so this will be our last study group of the week. But we got one next week. We got Network Plus next week, next Wednesday, and then Security Plus Wednesday after that. So plenty to do this month. I haven't actually written the Network Plus content yet. Is that bad? I haven't. You usually do it the weekend before. I'm trying to do it a little bit sooner, a little bit earlier, a little bit faster, but I haven't gotten there yet. So maybe I can get some of that done tomorrow. It would be nice to get all of that ready to go, but I don't know what questions we'll ask on Wednesday of next week because I haven't written it yet. It's all new questions every time. It's completely new or as new as I can think I make it. There are times when I will do a question in a study group and I will go back a couple of years and realize, oh, I wrote the same question 2 years ago. It was a completely different study group. I don't go back and look to see what I've done, but it was almost word for word the same question, and usually with different answers, except for the one that's correct. But that's a very common thing for me to end up doing, is overwriting myself. I have to do that when I'm writing my practice exam books. I have to really go through each section and write it each set of topics at a time. So I have to go to maybe Objective 1.3, and I need 3 questions for test 1, 3 questions for test 2, and 3 questions for test 3. And I'll write all 9 of those questions at one time. That way I know they are all completely different and you're not getting repeats. Otherwise, I'll just repeat myself. I guess there's only so many questions you can ask, right? And I've literally at this point written thousands and thousands of questions. So that's probably, it's just going to happen. It's just the nature of the beast. Plus, there's things you sort of lean on as you know what's going to be on the exam. You sort of have a pretty good idea of the topic. So you kind of lean on those a little bit more just so your folks can know that you're getting something that's at least somewhat valuable. So we're getting there. We are indeed getting there. We've got 5 minutes, 4.5 minutes to go. So feel free to get a hot beverage, make yourself comfortable. We'll be getting through all of the cameras. I need to probably check and make sure those cameras are good. They are. Everything looks really, really, well, wait a second. I've got a monitor in the way. I'm glad I checked the cameras. Move this out of the way. There we go. You can't see it on your side, but it's on my side. You'll see it in a moment, or you won't see it in a moment, as the case may be. There's our 5-minute warning. So we'll get started in 5 minutes. No, not 5 seconds, 5 minutes. And get those things there. What else we got going on? I think that's it for right now, for those of you working this angle. Trying to get these tests done, trying to get them done online. Some of you are going to an actual testing center, which is really nice. Just never know right now what's going on. We've got the presentation is ready. I think I've got everything set to go. What's nice is I did one of these Tuesday, so there wasn't much that changed here. I do change some things around in the studio between live streams. Some of these monitors come closer to me, and some of these things get pushed back, and the laptop actually is never here unless it's a live stream. So there's so many different things that happen in between. So I always have to put it back together, usually about 2 hours before I reconstruct, make sure it's working, and then an hour before we're locked in. I know everything is going to work. And I'm hopefully have tested everything, like tested the lights. There have been times when we've been ready to go, and it's been 15 minutes before we start, and I click the button to turn the lights on, and it's dark, and there's nothing. So those things happen. Then I have to run and get a ladder because the controls, the power distribution unit, and the outlet itself is up close to the ceiling because that's where the lights are. So I have to get a ladder in here, climb up the ladder, manually plug them in, get back down. 5 minutes, ready to go. And I'm breathing heavy. Okay, still last year. That's not how you want to be. Almost the same thing for planning your online testing, isn't it? You never want to be in that position for the online testing. You want to have everything in place, everything ready to go. Doesn't always work out that way. There's a lot of moving parts here. My mouse is not working properly. New mouse arrives today. I'm going to get a new keyboard. There's little things that are always breaking, so you have to kind of keep up with it. But that's today we don't have those problems. Today we're in good shape. Today the stream looks good. Presentations look good. Information on the screen is good. Number of you in the chat room saying you're doing your test on Monday for the 1002. Best of luck. This will be as kind of a last study group before that. But of course, you can go back now in the 1002 study group over a year worth of replays. So you can always go back and take some of the others back there and have that happen. Hello, Wyoming. I was supposed to be in Wyoming next week. Can you believe that? I had to cancel everything because of all of the changes, all the things going on with the virus. They canceled everything. So, oh well. Got to get out there again. What is the difference between 1001 and 1002? Night and day, as it turns out. So plenty. We'll talk a little bit about the differences at the beginning of this, but if you really want to know, just watch the very first video of my 1001 series. And I go through everything about what these things are, why they're different, strategies for taking your exams, my recommendations for study materials. They're all there. You can always look at that. It's the very first video of my series, which is called something like the how to pass your 1001 and 1002 exams. Did the pop quizzes get taken down? Nope. No pop quizzes got taken down. All the pop quizzes are there. The daily pop quizzes are recategorized. So if you want to look at 221,002 pop quizzes, you go to the 221,002 category now for pop quizzes. And some of the old ones, the ones that are left in that pop quiz category, probably this weekend will be going away because those are older ones. They won't go away, but they'll be hidden. You won't be able to see them. To have those things there just doesn't make sense. About to get started. Got about 40 seconds before we light this candle. Let's see if I can make sure these things, I think temperature-wise we're good. I have an upcoming event. I wonder what's going on. Thank you, telephone, for telling me. I should probably have it remind me a little bit earlier. If we found out 5 minutes before we went live, that would be a bad thing. Fortunately, that's not the case. We're in pretty good shape. Audios are good. Recordings are good. Okay. I think that it's just about time. Let's get the presentation up on my screen here. That's not the presentation. That's the presentation. Give me a green light. There it is. Let's do it. Here we go, everybody. Speaking of Wyoming. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the June 2020 Professor Messer study group. This is our 220-1002 study group, our second study group of the week, where in this first hour, I will give you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives for the 220-1002 exam, what CompTIA is also calling these days their Core 2 exam. You may see it written in a couple of different ways. We're going to step through a lot of different content today. Let's jump right into it. I have questions for you all ready to go. I'll explain to you right now how you can participate if you're watching this live. If you're not watching this live, you can always check in with us on the replay. You just follow along. But if you are watching live, you can answer the questions live. Another good reason to join us live. And the way you would do that is to use the service called Socrative. It will take you right to the question if you go to professormesser.com/QA. And you'll absolutely be able to see a question that is waiting for you. We'll look at that question in just a moment. There's also an app you can get for your mobile phone, your iPad, your Android device. Go to your favorite Google Play or Apple App Store. Look for the Socrative Student app. That's the one you want. It will ask you for a room name. That room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. And if you have a new browser window open and you go to professormesser.com/QA, or you have the app loaded into the app with the room name Professor Messer, then there's a question waiting for you. And that question is from last month. It's our rewind question that asks, a user received a message in their browser to upgrade to the latest version of Adobe Flash. Once the upgrade was complete, the computer began to perform erratically. Which of the following would best describe this situation? Would it be a Trojan horse? Would it be a worm? Would it be a keylogger? Would it be a rootkit? Or would it be crypto malware? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer there. Of course, do not put any answers in the chat room. Do not put any hints in the chat room. Sort of a standing rule for what we're doing. We'll come back to that answer in just a moment. I'll remind you that we have a daily pop quiz question for A+. We alternate between 1001 and 1002. You can find those at professormesser.com/Twitter, or more recently, we have a visual version of those at professormesser.com/Instagram. If you're an Instagram person, you always go to Instagram and see that. And of course, all of our videos, every one of our videos, every minute of our training videos are available to watch for free online at professormesser.com/YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, click the buttons, do the things so that you're able to keep track of what we are doing here. There's also a way that you can help support what we're doing without having to spend any extra money. If you're someone who buys things at Amazon, you can always use our link to go to Amazon, and we will get a small commission for the things you purchase. You don't pay anything extra. Amazon just gives us a little bit of money whenever you buy something for their thanks for sending you over. The way you would do that is go to professormesser.com/Amazon. We also today are going to be focusing on the 220-1002 exams. Obviously, there are two exams for the A+ certification. You have to take both of them and pass them to earn your A+. You can take them in any order you would like. There doesn't have to be any particular time frame between those as long as you're able to take both of them before they are retired. We're going to focus on the 220-1002. This is an exam series that's been out since January of 2019, so it's been out just over about a year at this point. We expect that this particular series will be retired somewhere in July of 2022. So if you're somebody who is studying right now and wondering, do I have to worry about things changing? You do not. You have plenty of time to be able to do that. The exam requirements for the 220-1002 on a scale from 100 to 900, you need to get a 700 on this. That doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? A scale of 100 to 900, you have to get 700 points. It's sort of odd to be able to have to deal with that, but that's how they do things at CompTIA. The idea is that you take and answer as many questions correctly as you can. Don't worry so much about the grading part of it. If you're somebody who was studying for the previous version of this, the 902 exam, about 23% of this exam is brand new. So make sure all of your study materials specify the 220-1002. Don't get anything that has a different number on it. Today, we're going to focus on the 220-1002. The topics on that exam deal specifically with operating systems, security, software troubleshooting, and operational procedures. So all the questions we do today will be directly from those exam objectives. I'll also let you know that I have a lot of different study materials for the 221002. There's video, there's audio, my course notes. I have written a exam hacks book that talks not about the exam content, but talks about how to prepare and take the actual exam part, which I don't think a lot of people talk about. And I try to bundle all of this together into one single group. I call this my success bundle. You can find out about this at professormesser.com/1002success/1002success, and you can see all about that. There is also an audio version of this study group available for replay afterwards. You can find that if you're a podcast listener, professormesser.com/podcast. If you like the video replay of this, that video replay is available on my website. And you'll notice about a day afterwards, my marketing manager, Lori, who's watching the replay, hi, Lori, she's going through and listening and putting timestamps in for everything that we are doing. So you can jump exactly to where you would like to go in the YouTube video description. So expand out that description. You'll see that entire list there of all of those things. Let's go back to that question I asked you originally, which was a user received a message in their browser to upgrade to the latest version of Adobe Flash. Once the upgrade was complete, the computer began to perform erratically. Which of the following would best describe this situation? Would it be a Trojan horse? Would it be a worm? Would it be a keylogger? Would it be a rootkit? Or would it be crypto malware? And 77% of you say that's a Trojan horse. That's a pretty strong majority. It's single digits for everything else. 9% said crypto malware, 7% said a worm, 5% said a rootkit, and only 2% said it was a keylogger. Well, the idea of a Trojan horse and the name of a Trojan horse comes directly from this idea of the Greeks using a fake horse to be able to capture Troy from the Trojans. It is the Trojan horse. The modern version of this is software that pretends to be something else. Usually it pretends to be something very innocuous. It's a game. It's a productivity tool. It's a utility that you can load that does something good for you. But the reality is that it's malware that does something bad to you. So this is how they get onto your system, by putting a level of trust in your mind that you can trust us. You can install this software. It's not going to hurt you at all. And in fact, it hurts you quite a bit. It gets around your security because you're the one running the software. You okayed this software to run on this computer. So once it gets installed, it's just like any other application that has the same rights and permissions that you do. And that's quite a bit of rights and permissions. Trojan horse is the right answer here. And you can see that 78% of you did choose Trojan horse as the right answer. It would not be a worm. A worm is a type of malware that replicates itself without any type of human intervention. There was no question here about non-human intervention. In fact, this specified the user upgrading information on their computer, so that would not be a worm. Crypto malware is malware that uses cryptography most often to encrypt the data that is on your computer. This is not that particular case because we're not seeing any messages here that anything was encrypted. A rootkit is a type of malware that fortunately is much rarer to see these days, but a rootkit gets into effectively the underlying operating system or kernel of your entire computer, and in many ways can hide itself from other services and software components on your computer. Only 5% chose that option. And 1% said a keylogger. Nothing here talked about any keys that were being logged. So not a keylogger in this case. The best answer, and really the only answer A, Trojan horse. 79% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done. Well, we've got out of the way our first question, which was really our replay question. How about some new questions? I have a new question for you. And as many of you who have attended these study groups before know, the very first new question of the study group is not a multiple choice question. It is what CompTIA calls a performance-based question. And I think there's a little bit of confusion out there. Some people think that a performance-based question means that they put you at a command prompt and ask you to perform a function. And they certainly could. That's a type of performance-based question. But there are other types of performance-based questions as well. There are matching questions. There's fill in the blanks. There's so much that you would run into from a type of question. Maybe you put things in order from highest to lowest or fastest to slowest. Those types of things are pretty useful to know about, because it's not all going to be command line stuff. You have to also think about other ways. And so what we have for you is our very first new question, which is a performance-based question. This one is a matching question. And this matching question takes a little bit of structure from an actual exam. There are 4 commands that I have listed here, and I have 6 descriptions listed here. And I want you to match the command to the description. Well, you can see that there's a mismatch here. I only have 4 commands. I have 6 descriptions, so there's going to be a couple left over. Makes it a little bit harder to try to figure this out. The 4 commands that I would like you to know, or to match anyway, are netstat, dd, sfc, and diskpart. Those are the 4 commands. Now, for those of you listening on the podcast, let me list out for you the 6 different descriptions. Description A is format a partition from the command line. Description B is identify any incoming network connections. Description C is list all currently running processes. Description D is verify that malware has not modified any system files. Description E is view available network drive shares. And description F is create an image from a Linux partition. So those are 6 different ones to be able to work through. Now, all of these, as you start breaking these down and trying to figure out where these fit, you'll notice that you will have 2 left over. So don't worry about the ones that are left over. It's a 1-to-1 match. So match the netstat, dd, sfc, and diskpart to the 6 different options that are available, which are format a partition from the command line, identify any incoming network connections, list all currently running processes, verify that malware has not modified any system files, view available network drive shares, and create an image from a Linux partition. If you think you know the answer, lock in your answer at professormesser.com/QA. If you think they're already in order, you can shortcut this. Just put into the fill in the blank that's there a 1A, 2B, 3C, and 4D. Now, this might be a drag and drop on your exam. It might be one where you draw lines between them. They may ask you to put them in order. They may have you drag and drop them in the right order. The idea of these performance-based questions is not to fool you with the way the question is formatted. They're going to ask you the same type of information they're going to ask you on a multiple choice-based question. It's just a different way to ask it. And it's not very complicated. Don't overthink it. They're not trying to fool you. They're not trying to make a question so that it cannot be answered. They just want to see if you know what you're talking about. And this would be a very good example of that. Just a matching question for these 4 different commands. So you can lock them in at professormesser.com/QA. No Googling. You can't Google this. I wrote this. It's brand new. It's never been on the internet. You can't really Google this one and figure out these details. So see if you happen to know what it is. Even if you don't know what it is, take a guess. So that's one that is pretty important on the exam. That's one thing we do know, is that we don't get any points taken away from us for guessing wrong. You don't get penalized for guessing wrong. You just don't get any points. The only way you can really earn points is getting a question right. So taking a guess is a pretty good idea. Now on this one, it could be that you get some right and some wrong. CompTIA has said on certain questions, we might give you partial credit or we might not. That's an official statement from CompTIA. It's in their frequently asked questions on their website, where it's asked, are any of these questions, any of these provide you with a partial credit? And they said, maybe not, which I'm not sure why they even answered it, but because it's not an answer. No. I mean, yes. I mean, sort of. Maybe. No. Yes. So there's no answer there anyway. So I'm sorry for those of you asking that, to be able to have that there. That's what that's about, to have all of those pieces available. Let's see how you did with this one. Let's match these commands to these descriptions. We'll start with all 4 of these commands: the netstat, the dd, the sfc, and the diskpart. Let's start with the very first one here and see what it is. The first on our list was netstat. Of the available options, netstat matched best with answer B, identify any incoming network connections. Now, netstat can do a lot of things. Netstat is an extremely flexible utility that allows you to view and look at many different things related to the network on your computer. But that is the only one in this list that best matches to NetStat. And it's a very common function of NetStat. If you're ever wondering who's connecting to my computer, what IP address is trying to have an inbound connection to my system, well, let's bring up NetStat and have a look at that. So it will indeed identify any incoming network connections. NetStat matched with answer B. Next on our list was DD, which doesn't seem like a real command. It seems like I may have forgotten something, but nope, that's a real command. It's a real Linux command, and it is one that allows you to create an image from a Linux partition. It is one that's very useful for doing Linux partitions, because this is, if you ever need to back up and create an image of a Linux computer, you're probably going to use DD to do this. If you ever use a third-party program that gives you more of a graphical way to back up an image on a Linux computer, guess what? Behind the scenes, it's probably just running DD to make that happen. That creates an image from a Linux partition. That was option F. Third on our list was SFC. That, of course, the Professional Football Consortium. I don't know what I'm talking about. SFC means that we need to do a system file check to verify that malware has not modified any system files. This is very common to do after you have tried to remove malware from a system and you want some way to verify that the underlying operating system has not been modified by this malware. Let's run a system file check, which will check all of the major system files and make sure that the checksums are correct. They haven't been modified. There's nothing else that's there. There's no problems associated with these files, and that the basic operating system files are all in very good shape. SFC, a very good program to know about. And last on our list, DiskPart. DiskPart, the only option available there was option A. And DiskPart is another one of those utilities that does so many different things. But one of the things that it does from this list is format a partition from the command line. So formatting a partition from the command line, very, very useful. Now, there were three other options here, commands and descriptions to look at. One was C, list all currently running processes. And let's see, I got a few here. The other one was view available network drive share. So there was two extras that we didn't hit. Now, listing all currently available processes, if you're on a Linux computer, viewing the processes is different than if you're on a Windows computer. But if you had to take a guess at this and do a fill in the blank, for Linux, you would use the PS command for process list. And on a Windows computer, you would use the command task list to be able to do this. So I didn't ask you for what that happened to be. We're sort of doing extra credit here, but those would be good ones to use to view running processes on your computer. And lastly on your list is viewing available network drive shares. And in Windows, if we're talking about drive shares, we're clearly talking about Windows. Linux doesn't use the term drive shares, but if we're doing that, it'd be a net view to be able to do that. If you're on a Linux machine and you want to have a comparable program or comparable utility to do that, you would use Mount, although Mount is not one of those programs or utilities that you need to know for the A+ exam. That goes outside the scope a little bit of what we are doing with that. So there's your list of commands and descriptions. That should give you an idea anyway of what you're able to face, what you're able to deal with, or what you're faced with when you start this exam. You're going to get about a handful of performance-based questions. So around 5, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, but you're going to get some questions on the exam that will ask you to do things that are not multiple choice. So that was your performance-based question of the month. Remember that we've got an entire year of these performance-based questions. Go back and look at the last 12 months, and you'll get a feel for different kinds of performance-based questions you might run into. I think it's a pretty good mix. I'm giving you my professional opinion that if you're planning to take your exam and you're a little iffy on performance-based questions, go back and look at the last 12 months of these. That will help you quite a bit figuring out what to do with those. Let's shift gears and do some multiple choice-based questions, because the bulk of your exam is going to be multiple choice-based questions anyway. Let's start with this multiple choice-based question, our first new multiple choice-based question of the month, which asks, which of the following is the best way to start safe mode on a Windows 10 computer configured with fast startup? Which of the following is the best way to start safe mode on a Windows 10 computer configured with fast startup? Is it use the F8 key when powering on? Is it log in with the administrator account? Is it interrupt the boot process 3 times? Is it use Control-Alt-Delete during startup, or is it boot from the installation media? So again, the question asks, which of the following is the best way to start safe mode on a Windows 10 computer configured with fast startup? Do we use the F8 key when powering on? Do we log in with the administrator account? Do we interrupt the boot process 3 times? Do we use Control-Alt-Delete during startup, or do we boot from the installation media? Now, if you think you know the answer, don't answer in the chat room. You want to instead go to this link that's right here, professormesser.com/QA, and lock in your answer. See if you happen to know what this one is. It's a pretty important thing to know, isn't it? Getting into safe mode. We talk a lot about safe mode in the 220-1002. So getting into safe mode, knowing how to do that's a pretty important part. This is one of those things, it's a practical part of the exam. A lot of people sometimes will say, what could I possibly learn by taking this 220-1002 or learning A+? Well, how about fixing it if it doesn't boot? That's one of the most common issues. This is one of those that might help you along those lines. So in the chat room, folks are saying the auto caption services aren't working. They're not designed to work. This is a low latency live stream. Google's auto caption services do not work on my live streams, unfortunately. They will work afterwards, so you can watch afterwards on the recorded version, and the auto captioning will work with those. But you will never see, at least not currently, Google and YouTube do not have auto captioning available for this type of live stream. It's because of the latency that's involved with able to do this. You're seeing this about 5 seconds after I send it, which is pretty quick. Most live streams have a 20 to 30 second delay, and this one does not. That way, I'm able to ask the question, and you can answer the question very quickly. Otherwise, I'd be sitting here talking for a long time, which apparently I'm doing anyway. Let's see how you did with this answer. Which of the following is the best way to start safe mode on a Windows 10 computer configured with fast startup? Do we use the F8 key when powering on? Do we log in with the administrator account? Do we interrupt the boot process 3 times? Do we use Control-Alt-Delete during startup? Or do we boot from the installation media? And you can see 59% of you say you use the F8 key when powering on. So if we go with the majority, that's the majority that has it. Although 24% of you, almost a quarter of you, say, no, you interrupt the boot process 3 times. That's the way you do it. Then single digits, 9% for boot from the installation media, use Control-Alt-Delete during startup, or log in with the administrator account. This is a little bit of a problem for Windows 10. Really, it started with Windows 8, Windows 8.1. because there's this new feature that they put into Windows called Fast Startup. You may have noticed this if you use Windows 10 and you're able to boot up and get things running. One of the things you might notice is that it starts up really quickly. Like it didn't even have to go through the BIOS process. It just suddenly started and you were in Windows. That's a big thing that Microsoft was working on to make this very, very, very fast and make sure that it's there. One of the things that is important then is knowing how Fast Startup works. The way Fast Startup works is that it puts your computer effectively in a mode that doesn't turn your computer all the way off when you shut down. Instead, when you start up, it starts itself up from where it left off, which means the BIOS process, whenever you start up the computer and the process allows you to hit F8, doesn't even happen. So you can never use F8. There's no option. It's already past that point when it's starting up. Well, then how am I supposed to get things running? Well, if you're in the Windows desktop, you can tell Windows, please start up normally. You can tell it to start up even into a recovery mode by going to the option under Settings, Update and Security, Recovery, Advanced Startup, and Restart Now. Or you can hold down the Shift key when clicking the Restart button from inside the Windows desktop, or you can choose the option in System Configuration, which is msconfig. But there's the problem, isn't it? We're trying to troubleshoot and get into safe mode. It may be that we're not at a Windows desktop, that we can't get to a Windows desktop to be able to tell Windows to start up normally. See the catch-22 with this? So the way that you get around this is you simply start your computer, and before it starts booting up, you power it down. You do that 3 times. You interrupt the normal boot process 3 times, and Windows suddenly realizes, wait a second, something here is not working normally. We've now tried to start 3 times, and right in the middle of starting those 3 times, something happened. So now the 4th time we do this, I'm just going to completely start up from the very beginning where I load the BIOS, and I give people the option to press F8 to start up into the different menu options for Windows, which would allow us to get into safe mode. So as weird as that sounds, that we just have to interrupt Windows 3 times, which seems it's very difficult. We've always been trained, let Windows shut down normally. Let Windows start up normally. Don't power down your system in the middle of it doing something. The actual answer is absolutely interrupt your system while it's in the middle of doing something. That's the one time I can tell you absolutely interrupt Windows and being able to do that piece of it, which means that the 23 or 24% of you that said interrupt the boot process 3 times, that's the right answer. And the key here is that this question asked about fast startup. Now, if this computer had fast startup disabled, which you can do, I tend to do that on my Windows computer, so I don't have to interrupt it 3 times if I ever need to get in here. But one of the things that you can tell Windows is don't use fast startup. And then in that particular case, you would use the F8 key when powering on. But with fast startup, you don't have that option. You have to first interrupt the boot process 3 times to even get to that point. If you're one of those 24% that answered C, interrupt the boot process, you got that one right. Now, if you got it wrong, 3/4 of you got it wrong, that's okay. Because now we just learned all about fast startup. And if you're put any questions on the exam, you run into anything, or maybe your own computer where you're trying to get into safe mode and you just can't do it, remember back to restarting your computer 3 times and being able to do that. These other options, log in with the administrator account. That has nothing to do with starting safe mode on a Windows 10 computer. Booting from the installation media really will not help you get into safe mode on this Windows 10 computer because it has fast startup. It will never boot from your boot media to be able to get to that point. See how that works? Doesn't help. And then lastly, using Control-Delete during startup doesn't do anything either. It doesn't help at all for those things. You have to interrupt the boot process 3 times. That's the only way to make this happen. And that is the right answer with this one. Let's do another question. We have some more multiple choice questions to go through. Next one on our list asks, a system administrator needs to automatically restart a Windows service each morning at 3 a.m. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Would it be PowerShell, a shell script, JavaScript, VB script, or a batch file? A system administrator needs to automatically restart a Windows service each morning at 3 a.m. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Would it be PowerShell, shell script, JavaScript, VB script, or a batch file? All 5 of those are real things. Didn't make any from that one. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints or comments in the chat room about it. We want to see if we happen to know what this is. If you don't know what this is, take a guess. That's what you should be doing on your exam anyway. All 5 of those answers are there. PowerShell, shell scripts, JavaScript, VB script, batch file. In fact, those come directly from the exam objectives. We have to know a little bit about scripting on the latest version of the A+ exam on the 221,002. It's near the end of the exam objectives. You don't have to know how to script to be able to take the exam. What you have to know is, what do these scripts do? When would be the right time to use a script like this? Because that's really the first step of this, is knowing now I'm in the situation to restart a Windows service every morning at 3 a.m. What is the right tool in my toolbox to be able to do this? That's really the question. That's really the question on a lot of these on the exam. A lot of the exam has, for example, command line options. You have to know what SFC does. You have to know what task kill does. You have to know what the PS does. You have to know all those different options. You don't have to know every single option for every single one of those commands. You just have to know, generally speaking, when would you use this command? When is the right time to pull that tool out of your toolbox and be able to use that? That's what you're doing with this question, is figuring out which tool is the best one. Because I probably could use a number of these to perform this function. There probably is 1, 2, 3 of these I could possibly do to be able to perform this function, but that wasn't the question, was it? The question asked, which of the following would be the best choice for this task? That's what we want to do. So let's see how we did coming up with the best choice for this task. You don't want to be there every morning at 3 a.m. doing it manually, do you? You want to instead be able to choose the right option here. Let's see how you chose this one. 48% said PowerShell, 25% said batch file, 20% said shell script. There's a lot there to choose from. We're sort of torn as to what it can be. What we definitely don't think it is VB script or JavaScript. Those are 5% and 2% apiece. So that's not the right answer. The real key here is understanding what we've been asked to do. We know that we're running Windows. We know that it is a Windows service, which already has some complications from an administrator perspective. Windows services are very particular. They require a certain set of rights and permissions to be able to add, remove, or modify. They are the underlying part of the operating system. The users don't generally see Windows services. This is something very particular. And if you have something that is like this, where it's part of the Windows operating system, it's a function internally within Windows, the best choice, the best tool for this particular task would be one that was built for Windows and making that happen. And in this case, the one that is built for Windows is Windows PowerShell. Windows PowerShell is specifically created to be able to do this. Whenever I start working through the different options on the scripting that I should use, you should use the one that has been natively created to be able to do this. And PowerShell is a perfect example of this. It has a PS1 file extension. It's included Windows 8, 8.1, and Windows 10. And it really extends the functionality of the command line. If you're a command line person like I am, you like getting down to the command line, you know that the command prompt in Windows allows you to do file manipulation and change things on the file system, but it doesn't do a very good job of giving you access into the inner workings of Windows. That's because the command prompt's been around before Windows was created. So PowerShell is effectively the new version of that, or at least an upgraded version of that. It's not a one-to-one difference. I wouldn't call it an upgrade, but it's certainly one that is a better fit for someone who needs to administer a Windows machine and being able to work through those. This is one where if you're a system administrator, if you're managing Active Directory, if you need to make changes inside of Windows, PowerShell is a perfect one to use for something like this. It is designed to give you access. Just looking at the things that are on the screen, let me quickly show you this. For instance, the get service command inside of PowerShell, look, it's showing you all of the Windows services that are available to you just by running get service. It's just part of PowerShell that allows you to do that. With any other scripting language, you would need some type of API, or you need some type of additional library. You would need something else that would give you a hook into the operating system. You'd probably have to provide some type of authentication. You don't have to do that with PowerShell. It uses your existing authentication. It's part of Windows. It's already built into what PowerShell does. PowerShell is the right answer in this particular case, and 50% of you said, yep, I think that's the right answer, and you did get that one absolutely right. Now, what about these others? Why wouldn't we have used any of these others to be able to perform this task? For 24% of you said, I'd use a batch file. And as I mentioned, a batch file could be used to perform a number of functions in the Windows operating system, even functions that aren't inherent to the command prompt inside of Windows. But as I also mentioned, you probably are going to need some type of library or third-party service or access to an API to be able to use that batch file. An API is an application programming interface, kind of a hook or a library into another system. So batch files would not be the best choice for this task. They might be a choice for this task, but certainly more complicated. A shell script is a Linux script. So if you're in that particular scenario, you're running Linux, then you're probably not changing Windows services from a Linux machine. Again, it's another one of those cases where you probably could get a library or get some type of Samba system to be able to manage or change things on a Windows computer. It's not the question, could you do it? The question was, what would be the best choice to do it? And a shell script would certainly not be the best choice to be able to do that. We have 5% said a VB script. It stands for Visual Basic. The VB script extensions are generally found in applications like the Windows Office apps. So if you're using Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel or Microsoft PowerPoint, VB scripts are inherent. They are in that. They're built into those types of applications. And you can indeed run VB scripts just from the operating system as well. But again, no direct access to managing Windows services. You'd have to do something fancy to be able to make that happen. And lastly, JavaScript. which is a great scripting program to automate things inside of a browser. But we don't need to automate things inside of a browser. We need to automate Windows services, and a browser absolutely does not have access to a Windows service. So in this case, JavaScript would not be the right answer either. PowerShell, which does not replace the command prompt. It extends capabilities that are not available in the command prompt. There may still be times when the command prompt is a better option to use over PowerShell, but the best place to do any type of Windows administrative function is probably going to be inside of PowerShell itself and being able to make that happen. If you answered PowerShell, 50% of you did answer A, and that is the right answer. Well, there is just plenty here to be able to pull from. We've already talked about scripting, and we talked about command lines. There's hardware on these exams, networking, security. There's an extensive amount of information on these exams. In fact, my course is 137 videos for both the 1001 and 1002. That's a lot of videos that extend over 18 hours, almost 18 and a half hours, to be able to see everything you need to know on this exam, on both of these exams. And people still tell me, I think it could be bigger. Can you make it bigger? I don't think you want it bigger than this. 18 hours is pretty much where I think we should stop with that one. The problem is that it's so much information, though. How are you supposed to take notes and be able to gather all the information you need for these exams by simply watching these videos? Well, one of the things that I've done is take everything on these videos and I've consolidated them into a single set of notes. These are Professor Messer's A+ course notes. The course notes themselves are available in both digital and physical forms. The digital PDF is one that you can purchase and download right now, and it takes you step by step through every single video and gets all of the text and all of the graphics and all of the tables and all of the details from every single one of those videos, all in one place. There's also a physical version of the course notes available. There's the book version. So it's the same information. It's just in a physical form. This is made from dead trees, paper. That's what we built it on, for those of you that like books. And some of you really, really like the physical form of this. You can grab it and take it with you, and you have it in something that's more tactile. You can write in it. You can do whatever you'd like. It's high quality color type paper, heavy stock paper to be able to do this. And if you purchase the physical version, I give you the digital version for free. So while you're waiting on these notes to be delivered, you can get the digital version. You've got a choice on the website to get the physical or the digital. It's completely up to you. So you can, of course, be able to see that. You'll find it at professormesser.com/1002 notes. Is there a free version of the notes? There's a free version of the videos. So you can watch all 18 and a half hours of every single video, every minute of every video, absolutely free online. So that's what you can do. So I kind of extend the capabilities. If you need more than that, I've got some things that might be able to help you, or maybe you take your own notes. There's a good free way to do it. Be able to work through them. Some of you do that, which is perfectly reasonable. But if you're somebody who doesn't want to go through all 137 videos in 18 and a half hours, this is something that might work for you. And this also helps keep going what we're doing here. It helps support the website and what we are doing. So just another way to keep the lights on. You can find out more about that at professormesser.com/1002 notes, 1002 notes. Let's do more Q&A. That's what we're here for, right? Oh, and for those in chat room, I do not have a PayPal to donate. I don't accept donations. I would prefer you get something for your money. That's why I've created these notes. That's why I have practice exams. That's why I have these different things that you can do. So that's one of the things we do. I prefer not doing the donating and having those things for a lot of different reasons. But nope, I don't do that. But I appreciate the idea. Appreciate the thought of that. Let's do another question that asks, a system administrator is configuring a new drive with the GPT partition style. What is the maximum number of partitions that can be configured on this drive? A system administrator is configuring a new drive with the GPT partition style. What is the maximum number of partitions that can be configured on this drive? Is it 4, 8, 32, 64, or 128? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Maybe you know the answer. Maybe you've worked with these drive types and you know what these differences are. There would be a good one to be able to break this out and be able to work through it. This would be a good idea to have those things there. If you don't know, take a guess. A lot of you on the chat room are saying, I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure what the right answers are with this one. Go give it a shot. See if you happen to know what this happens to be. We can, of course, go through all of this and break these down. This is one. Oh, good. So you watched the video on this yesterday. So folks in the chat room are familiar with some of these. Go through the view of this and being able to break that out. One of the things I do whenever I start breaking through and trying to figure out questions like this, maybe you know what it isn't. Maybe this is one of those situations where it's more like calculatus eliminatus. And we sort of, well, I don't think it's this and I don't think it's that. And maybe that gets you down to maybe 2 or 3 different options. That might help you as well on the exam. That would be one that can really help on the exam if you start breaking these out. As always, no questions and no answers in the chat room, no hints in the chat room. We're going to try to figure this out as if we're sitting there on the exam waiting for this to happen and getting all those things there. Maybe you'll figure it out if we break this down too. This may be a good chance to learn something on this one. You don't really run into this unless perhaps you're doing or configuring a new drive. You're doing an installation or configuring a new drive on your system. So this may be one of those cases where you just don't do it enough to know. I think it's our printer questions on the 1001 are a lot like this. We don't have a lot of things on our exam that have, we don't have laser printers in our house usually. So it's hard to understand where to configure a laser printer and break those out. So hopefully that's one where you can get an idea of what you would work through all of those. Let's see how you did with this one. A number of you locked in your answer to figure out these details. A system administrator is configuring a new drive with the GPT partition style. What is the maximum number of partitions that can be configured on this drive? And a lot of you chose E, which of course is 128, but we have double digits for everything else. 18% of you chose 4, 12% chose 8, 12% also chose 64, and 10% chose 32. We're just not sure what this might happen to be with all of these. We all chose an answer, but we were not really all together on what this might be. Well, let's talk about GPT. It's not talking about a time zone. It's talking about a partition style. It stands for GUID Partition Table, a global unique identifier. That's what that GUID stands for, GPT. This globally unique identifier is what you would find pretty much on any new system that you are configuring. It is the latest type of partitioning. You have to have, for instance, a UEFI BIOS to be able to partition things in a GPT partition style. Very useful to have that, but it allows you, in fact, a good point to this, allows you to have 128 partitions. So for those of you that answered 128, that was the right answer in here. The question in the chat room, I think, is a good question. Why in the world would you need 128 partitions? That's really a good question. And the answer is you probably don't need 128 partitions. But somebody out there does for one of these, for 128 partitions. It's very unusual to have 128. The problem, though, is that the older style of partitioning standard was the master boot record partition standard, the MBR partition standard. That MBR allowed you to have 4 partitions. Now, it got to a point where people said, well, I came into these corner cases, I need more than 4. I need to have more than 4 partitions that I could boot from on a computer. And so they came up with a standard and said, okay, what standard can we create now that would give us more than 4, but would also give us a way to not hit a limit in the future? And GPT was a standard they came up with. They decided 128 is a good number. That's way out there. Nobody's ever going to use 128. They're not. And be able to have those things there. In fact, most people only have a single partition. In the case of Windows 10, you probably have 2 partitions. There's a sort of the UEFI BIOS has a little separate tiny partition. There might be a Windows recovery partition, and then there might be Windows. So you might find on most drives today, there's 3. So we're already using 3 of the 4 that would normally be with master boot record. With GPT, you can now see why we need more than 4. And 128 is really big, but why not? If you got the space, if you're configuring a new standard, why wouldn't you make it plenty of partitions? That way you don't need to do the weird things you did in the master boot record, which was configure extended partitions, logical drives inside of the extended partitions. It got to be a little bit crazy, especially if you needed to boot from those. there were some limitations with those. So GPT, if you're configuring a brand new Windows installation, configure it with GPT. You're probably using a UE5 BIOS on your latest computers anyway. Why wouldn't you do that? It just makes perfect sense. And the folks that did answer E, 128, 48% of you got that one absolutely right. You were spot on. It's not 64, it's not 32, it's not 8. Those I just kind of threw numbers up. The 4 obviously came from the master boot record side. That's what that was from, the master boot record. So you're either going to have a choice of the MBR at 4 or the GPT at 128. Got some options there. To be able to have that, that is the right answer. Now, if you are watching this video for continuing education unit credit, you might already have your A+ certification or Network Plus or Security Plus, and you'd like to be able to earn a CEU. In fact, CompTIA calls this a webinar category CEU for watching this video. Then you need to follow these instructions exactly or close enough. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There is a Contact Us link. On that Contact Us link, it will bring you to a form that asks for your name, your email address. Make sure the email address is correct because I'm sending this back to you over email. See how that works? Make sure those are right. In the subject line, please put that this is the June 2020 1002 A+ study group or something in there that's similar to that I can recognize. And then on a single line by itself in the body of the message, put the super secret code word of the month, GPT. That is our super secret code word of the month, the GUID partition table, which is the globally unique identifier partition table. There's a lot going on there. Send that to me. For the folks asking about it, usually takes me about a week to get these back to you. I usually do them on the weekend. So you'll send this in to me, and then you'll just get an email from me on a Sunday morning wondering what's going on. Well, that's me finally going through the hundreds of emails and getting these back to you whenever we do that. If you haven't gotten an answer, let me know. Just ask me. If you've got, if you're watching this on a replay and you would like to send it in, send it in. You can do this whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on a replay. You can go back and look at the last year of videos and send me one for every single one, although CompTIA only accepts a certain number of webinar category CEUs to work towards your renewal. You'll have to get the other CEUs somewhere else to be able to do that. Yes, you could send me 128 emails. None of them would be good. I think the largest number would be for Security Plus. I think they'll accept 10. I think for Network Plus, they accept 8. And I think for A+, they only accept 4. You have to do them somewhere else if you want to get that. That's how you would earn that CEU. I'm more than happy to do that. And you can, of course, put anything else in that message to me as well. I'm the one reading through them and processing them. I can't necessarily respond back to every single one of them, but I do read through every single one of them. There's many different ways to recertify your certification. This is just one of them. There's a video on YouTube I created on how to renew your A+ certification in just a few hours, which has nothing to do with CEUs. So you may want to look through that video too. There's a lot of different ways to renew. This is just one of those. I would say probably fewer people are doing it via CEU these days. CompTIA tried to make it a little bit easier. Let's do some more questions. We got some time, right? Let's got another question for you. The next question on our list is one that asks, a server admin would like to prevent anyone from connecting flash drives to the server. Good idea. Which of the following would best fit this requirement? Would it be a cable lock, biometrics, privacy filter, a USB lock, or a key fob? A server admin would like to prevent anyone from connecting flash drives to the server. Which of the following would best fit this requirement? Would it be a cable lock, biometrics, privacy filter, USB lock, or key fob? That may be a good set of options to choose from. You have to be able to figure out what these might be if you happen to go through them. If you are a server administrator, you may be faced with this. Let's see if you know the answer. If you do, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Please do not put answers in the chat room or any hints in the chat room, and be able to work through these. This is one where if you're ever in the situation where you're trying to figure out what do you do, this is a lot of different options to choose from. Some of these options may be better than others, which means you have to choose the one that says which one would fit best for this requirement. You may be able to figure out those details. Do I have any plans for fill-in-the-blank certification? This is one where it's a common question. What am I doing next? What is the next certification that I happen to do on my site? Well, I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. We go through it. It's one of those, I think, changes week to week for me too, because I never know. One week I think, well, this is absolutely where I'm going. This will be the next thing I do. And then the next week I think, well, wait a second. Maybe I should do that one. So I have a big list. I just never exactly know where I'm going to go once I get finished with whatever I'm working on at the moment. Usually I do one thing at a time. So we get there to figure out those details. That might help to be able to break through. What are we going to do? How are we going to break these things out? How are we going to figure out all of these different details? That's the one I start to really break down and figure out what is the next thing going to be. So break down this one then. Figure out the details of this and figure out what you should be doing with these different options. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asked, a server admin would like to prevent anyone from connecting flash drives to the server. Which of the following would best fit this requirement? So figure out the details between cable lock, biometrics, privacy filter, USB lock, and key fob. How did you choose for this one? 84% of you said a USB lock. Is that even a thing? Did I make that one up? Did we all choose that one because it sounded right? We're about to find out because all the rest are single digits. 6% said privacy filter, 5% said biometrics, 3% said key fob, and then 1% said cable lock. So this is the situation you run into is you really have to know what these things are and know if they are even a real answer or not, because sometimes CompTIA might give you on the exam kind of a fake answer, which is why everybody's trying to figure out at this point, is that a fake answer? It's not. That's a real thing. When you start breaking these out, a USB lock is a physical lock, like the physical lock that's on your door of your house. A physical lock is a USB lock. I have one of these. In fact, this is my USB lock on my computer that I happen to have here and being able to work through it. It is a physical lock you put into an interface and has a special key on it that does this. So it fits into this weird looking key that you see here, goes into the lock, and then you remove it, you pull it out, and it's locked in there. You cannot remove it with a lightning cable. You'd have to have that type of key or know how to manipulate the inside of the lock to be able to remove it. This is not a lock that's designed to prevent the best possible key hacker from getting into your computer. This is one to show people you're not supposed to be plugging things into this interface. And as I mentioned here, this should be the secondary option. The first option should be tell the operating system not to allow anything to plug in and use a USB connection. It's a relatively simple lock. Here's a better picture of it. There's the lock. It's got the USB. I've attached the USB lock to it. I plug it into the interface and I pull the lock back, and now it's stuck there. It is in the USB, and nobody can really get in there to be able to remove that. It doesn't pull out. You can't pull it out of there. There's hooks that are now hooked into the USB connection and will not allow you to remove it unless you have this special key that allows you to get that. It becomes useful to have that functionality too whenever I start working through that. This is one also that will come up on your exam in the security section under the physical security. You see right down here, it's from section 2.1, physical security. So USB locks can be pretty useful. You don't run into them a lot. They have a very specific function, but they are useful in the right place. The same reason you might put a lock on a rack. The same reason you might have a certain kind of lock at the front of your data center. The same reason you might have a physical person in your data center to provide security. The right type of physical security can be pretty important to be able to have things right there. So very, very useful to have that. And it might work for you as well. In fact, 84% of you said, yeah, we'll use a USB lock to prevent anybody from physically connecting a flash drive into this system. What about USB lock software? As I mentioned, operating systems allow you to lock off certain functionalities. Microsoft Windows certainly allows this in their Active Directory, where you can tell Windows itself, do not allow anyone to send or receive data from a USB connected storage device. And that's very common to see, especially in government environments, to have those things there. That's what you might run into there as well. We got time for one more question, so let's do another one for this one to break this out. I want to see if this next question is the one that I would like to go with. I want to end it on a bang. So let's get a good question here for you and have this here. Okay, Let's go to this next one because I think this is a pretty good troubleshooting question for you. This question asks, a Windows 10 computer is starting up into safe mode. We already know how to get to that point, right? But this question asks, which of the following should be the next step to troubleshoot this issue? A Windows 10 computer is just starting up into safe mode. We didn't even tell it to. It's just doing that. Which of the following would be the next step to troubleshoot this issue? Would we start in VGA mode? Would we check reliability monitor? Would we run startup repair? Would we run Windows update? Or would we run SFC? 5 different options to choose from. A Windows 10 computer is starting up into safe mode. Which of the following would be the next step to troubleshoot this issue? Would it be start in VGA mode, check reliability monitor, run startup repair, run Windows update, or run SFC? Lock in your answer. See if you happen to know what the right answer would be. What would be the next step to troubleshoot this issue? If you think you know the answer, again, no questions in the chat room, no answers in the chat room. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA right there. There's the link. Lock in your answer. Know what that happens to be. Windows 10 computer starting up into safe mode. This is an annoying problem, isn't it? You come in the morning. It's been a long weekend. It's Monday. You hit the power button. Your computer starts up, and it doesn't start up properly. It starts up into safe mode. Now what am I going to do? That's effectively this question. What would be the next step to be able to troubleshoot this issue? What really should be the next step? Not what could be, but what should be the next step. You need to resolve this problem. You need to do it quickly. So what would resolve this problem and what would do it quickly? It's a big one to have this here. And there could be more. There's certainly on this list a number of things that I could do. I could do 1, 2, at least 3 things, maybe 4 of these things are things I could do. And I see this problem a lot when people talk about troubleshooting issues. This problem happened to my computer. Oh, here's what you should do. They give an answer that is kind of a stab in the dark. Like, here's what you should do. That's the only, and without knowing anything else about the problem. And you sort of have to do that on these questions too. All you know is that it's starting up into safe mode. How can you make it so it doesn't start up into safe mode anymore? That's effectively this question. And knowing what you know, which is nothing, that's all you got. What would be the best thing you could do at this point? Which one of these would work for you? See if you happen to know what it is. Many of you have locked in your answer. Let's see how you answered it. Is it start in VGA mode, check reliability monitor, run startup repair, run Windows update, or run SFC? 59% of you said, I would run startup repair. 28% of you said you would run SFC. And then single digits, 7% said check reliability monitor, 4% said start in VGA mode, 3% said run Windows update. I thought more of you would choose check reliability monitor. I was expecting double digits for that one. And you only chose 7% for that one. 59% said choose startup repair is what you should be running. Is that the right answer? This is one where you're starting up your system and you get an error, like, for example, the system booting into safe mode. That means that your Windows is not starting normally. And one of the best ways to fix that these days with Windows 10 certainly is just run startup repair. It's an option that probably will start up on your computer. To have that there, just run startup repair. It fixes so many problems with Windows. And who knows what happened behind the scenes? Was there a Windows update? Did somebody make a change to the operating system before shutting down on Friday? Something happened that caused this go into safe mode. Fortunately, Startup Repair does an exceptional job at determining why this is not starting up properly and correcting those types of problems. Now, if Startup Repair does not fix this, then we have to go to the next set of steps. But that was not this question. The question was asking, what do we do right now just to fix this? How can I troubleshoot this as quickly, effectively, efficiently as possible? That's the way you do it, is you would run Startup Repair. And then Startup Repair, it's like this. Checks your system for problems. It sits there and searches for problems. It takes a long time. It goes minute after minute. You can go away. You can get some coffee. You can come back. You can see what's going on. Startup Repair eventually will finish and say, let's restart now and see what happens. And many times fixes the issue wherever it is. Now, why wouldn't we run SFC? SFC is the system file checker. SFC does one thing and one thing only. It checks the files of the operating system to make sure that they have not been modified. These are the core operating system files. It doesn't check your configuration of your operating system, just checks to see if the raw executables and kernel files of your operating system are exactly the way they were when they were installed or updated. Now, we got a safe mode that popped up, but we don't know why safe mode popped up. It could be that the problem we're having has nothing to do with the underlying operating system files of your computer. And it's possible that Startup Repair does some checks of those files and more. But the real key here is that Startup Repair is very comprehensive and goes well beyond just looking at core operating system files. It looks at much more than that to be able to repair what's happening on your computer. That's a fantastic utility to use. That was the right answer. We have 7% that said check reliability monitor, which is a great tool to have if an application is failing. If you're getting an error from an app, that's when you want to use reliability monitor. This is not an application problem. This is our operating system not working. So in that particular case, reliability monitor, probably not our best choice. 4% of you said start in VGA mode. We didn't have any problems here with the graphics starting up. We didn't have any problem viewing what was on the screen, and having some problem with the display starting up or causing a safe mode would be repaired with Startup Repair. It would not be fixed by starting into VGA mode. In fact, it's very, very unusual that safe mode would have something to do with VGA or the video display mode, probably a small percentage of cases. And then lastly, run Windows Update. Shouldn't we always run Windows Update? No, we should not always run Windows Update. Windows Update would not be our choice here. In fact, we don't know that the problem we have will be solved by running Windows Update. In fact, we might create more of a problem by installing Windows Update, because Windows Update has a really good track record at causing problems. So let's not complicate things. Let's not add more variables to an already difficult problem. Don't run Windows Update quite yet. And being able to use that. Yeah, SFC is your system file checker. That's what that is. It actually is an acronym. Not that you have to know what that acronym is, but it might help you if you're in a question like this and it says run SFC, to think, what was that again? System file checker. Oh, that must be the thing that checks my system files, because it is the system file checker. The right answer here is C, run Startup Repair. 59% of you spot on. You got that one right. Well done. Every question we did today came directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. Make sure you have a copy of these objectives. They should have been the first thing you download when you start your studies. They should be the last thing you reference before scheduling your exam. If you know everything that is in the exam objectives, you will do fine on your exam. You don't need to go outside the scope of the objectives. Stick to the objectives. If it's not listed in the objectives, you don't need to know it for your exam. That's how specific they are, and that's how close they stay to those objectives on the exam itself. You can also get redirected over to the CompTIA website to download these by going to professormesser.com/objectives. Also let you know that we do one of these study groups every month for Core 1, Core 2, Network Plus, and Security Plus. We do 4 of these a month. We have, this is our last A Plus one of the month, but next week we have a Network Plus study group. And you can come back next month on July 7th and July 9th for the next A Plus study groups that we have planned. If you're listening to this or watching this and you're well past July 7th or July 9th, and you would just like to know when's the next live event going to be, well, I've got a calendar on my website that will tell you, constantly updated. You can go to professormesser.com/calendar, and it will tell you when the next live event is going to be. If you watch this on a replay and you think it'd be kind of fun to be here live and answer these questions and be part of the chat room, we'd love to have you here. Find out when the next event's going to be, professormesser.com/calendar. Well, that's the part of the study group where I ask you the questions. Now we have the after show. We're going to turn this around and you're going to ask me the questions. I'll open up the phone lines and take questions from the chat room. Don't forget about our 1002, our Core 2 course notes, and our Success Bundle at professormesser.com/1002success. You can, of course, follow us, what we're doing on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. You just type in professormesser.com/one of those things, /Twitter, /YouTube, /Instagram. They're all there. and being able to have that. And you can, of course, don't forget, if you're an Amazon purchaser, you can help us by visiting our website before going to Amazon. You pay the same low price, but you help support what we're doing here by going to ProfessorMesser.com/Amazon. Thanks for being here in this first hour. Stick around. We got plenty more to go. We'll see you on the other side in the after show. Thanks for joining us for the A+ study group. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone. Let's get the phone lines turned on, shall we? Let's see if I can bring this up. There we go. That was some good Q&A. Got through quite a bit of those this time, too. And then we will talk about studying and other things as soon as I figure out how to host a show. See, I need to bring up my Skype so that I can call into my own show. That's how it works. You get to call into the show, and I get to call into the show. It's the same show. Some of you are already calling into the show. That's how fast you are. Quick on the uptake. So we're going to call in myself to my own show with a mouse that, by the way, is not working, which makes it very difficult. Oh.
That was an invalid show number.
I know, that was an invalid show number, which means I have to type very carefully.
Enter your
Oh, good. I have a new mouse arriving today. That left mouse button is not quite connecting properly. And because of that, I get double clicks, or in some cases, no clicks on the screen. And when you're using a mouse, that's the best, isn't it? When your clicks don't register properly, not a good situation to have those things there. But now I am in, and now you could be in. The way that you can participate is I will take questions from the chat room. If you're on YouTube right now, it's the YouTube chat. If you're on ProfessorMesser.com/live, it's the same YouTube chat that's there. There's only one chat room, and I'm looking at it. So I'll be able to get questions from there. You can also call in on a telephone with voice communication. That's right. We got all set up on a toll-free number in the continental United States, absolutely free, 855-785-RJ45. West of the Rockies is 855-785-7545. If you're outside of the continental U.S., you can also call in for free if you use Skype, because Skype will use toll-free numbers without having any Skype minutes required. You just put a +1 at the beginning, +1 855-785-7545, and that'll get you there. You'll be able to call in and be able to talk with me for no money whatsoever. And of course, if you have minutes on your cell phone plan, that's a little different. May have to do that. Question from the chat room: does studying for the 1002 help with the 1001? Or should you focus on 1002 and ignore 1002 for now? And in fact, as an adjunct to that, I've saw somebody online that was studying for both exams at the same time and was planning to really, in this particular case, to have a way to take one exam one day and one exam the next day. Why would you do that? Why would you go down that road? Study for one exam first, then study for the other exam. One of the great benefits about the structures of these two exams is you can take either one at first. You can take the 1001 first and then take the 1002, or you can take the 1002 first and then take the 1001. I guess it depends on what topics you're most comfortable with. Both of those are pretty much standalone exams. There's not a lot of overlap on those two exams. So that means you can focus on one exam, study one exam's exam objectives, study everything you know for that exam, go take that exam, go pass that exam, and then set it aside. Switch your efforts over to a new exam. So that's what I really focus on doing. There's no reason to study and take both of these exams at the same time. That sounds crazy. Unless you're somebody who's been in the industry forever, you already know most of this content cold. You could just walk in with very little study and do pretty well. That's a little different. But for most of us that are just really trying to get our arms around this content, just worry with one at a time. And I think you'll be very good with this. And I know other people say to do exactly the opposite. They're completely wrong. It's such a bad advice in today's structure. Now, if you go back a couple of versions of the exam, there was tons of overlap. There was a lot of overlap on these two exams, but that overlap now is very, very different. It's one of those where you don't run into this anymore. So see if you're familiar with this. When you start breaking these things down, I think it might help you too as you go through these pieces, figuring out those. There are online exams also available for all of these CompTIA exams now. So if you want to take exams from home, you have that option. You don't have to go to exam center anymore, and they will continue to provide that functionality even once we're allowed out of our caves and we go back into normal things and we can see people close up again. We will still be doing online exams. They have said they will continue to do that into the future. It's just another new thing that they're providing, and I think that might help a lot of people where you may not have an exam center that's close to you. So let's go now to some of the phone lines, folks calling in. Let's go to the 614 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello?
Hi, caller. You may want to pick up the phone and listen in to the phone and not the stream. What can we do for you? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Karim. I'm calling from Columbus, Ohio.
Hey, thanks for calling. If you can pick up and not have us on a speaker, that would help a lot for everybody as well.
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, much better. What's your question?
Yes, I just want to thank you for everything. I was taking the A plus class here in Columbus, my professor, and he referred us to your website for the video. But I'm telling you, it is very, very, very helpful.
Great.
Anytime I'm very confused, I'm lost on the class, when I come on the video, it just go through, and it's very helpful.
Fantastic.
Very, very helpful and very organized and very simple. And I want to buy the 1001, 1002, the video and physical stuff. I don't know if your payment like PayPal.
Oh, sure. So everything on my site, for the people that you've never been to my site, you've never gone through the purchase process. First off, everything on my site, when you purchase training materials, whether they're digital or physical, obviously physical training materials are shipped to you. Digital training materials are there for you to download as much as you would like. They're there in perpetuity. They don't time out. You don't get a certain number of downloads. Once you buy them, they're yours. That makes sense to me. In fact, it helps if you need to put them on different machines that you use. You might have a laptop, you might have a tablet, you might have a mobile phone, and you might want to have these course notes and other videos on all of these devices. You can do that. So that helps as well. And I accept different types of purchases as well. A lot of people will pay with a credit card, but you can also pay with PayPal, and you can also pay with cryptocurrency as well. I take Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I will thank you for everything you're doing for us.
Absolutely. I appreciate the call, and best of luck with your class. And I love your instructor for mentioning me. Thank you. Whoever that instructor is, thank you so much. I appreciate it to have those things there. The chat room real quick before we go back to the phone lines. There's some folks asking how the online exams are monitored. If you go to a testing center, there's a camera, there's people that can see in the windows of the testing room to watch you and make sure you're not cheating, that you're not an evil cheater. Well, how do they do this online? Well, they watch you because you have to have a camera either on your laptop or your desktop computer. A webcam is required to be able to do that. And the webcam, they're constantly watching you. You can't see them, but they are recording everything you're doing from the very moment you start the program till the very end. They're watching what you're doing. In fact, they want to see the room. They make sure that your testing area is clear of any papers or books or any other materials. Your phone can't be anywhere nearby. You can't have headphones in. There's a whole bunch of things, and they're all on the CompTIA website. They explain what those different requirements are, but they are watching you every moment. You can't see them, which I think helps. It would be kind of creepy if there's the guy and he's watching me the whole time. Even though he is, I can't see them doing it, so I guess it's okay. Maybe that helps me a little bit in my mind, settles me down a little bit. But that's one where they're absolutely monitoring you, and they're monitoring you for the entire duration of the exam, just so you're ready to go with that. Some of you are fine with that. Some of you are not. Some folks are asking if there's any noise when you're taking the test, do they automatically fail you? They don't. They don't want you to have any noise. Your room has to be enclosed. You can't just be out in the open. Has to be 4 walls and a door. The door has to be closed. You're in a testing center. It's a testing environment you have to set up for a test. You can't have music playing. You can't have some audio playing. If a truck goes by, that's okay. You hear it in the microphone that the truck rolled by. You're all right. But if there is a significant amount of noise that is constant and they hear it, well, that's an opportunity. We know from Major League Baseball, just banging on a garbage can can be cheating. So if you have somebody in another room banging on a garbage can, they might fail you. But other than that, maybe not. It's up to the person who is your proctor for your exam, and they have some pretty detailed sets of rules and regulations, just so you're familiar. Oh, yes, I upset the Astros fans who cheated. Yes, I'm so sorry that I upset the cheaters of Major League Baseball. I'm so broken up about that one. Let's go back to the phones. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller. Are you there? I think it's a Skype call. Make sure you're unmuted. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Okay, can you hear me?
Hi, I hear you fine. What's your question?
Okay. My name is Sowakumi, and I'm calling from Nigeria.
Thank you for calling.
Yeah. I'd like to just say thank you for, all you're doing, your course notes and your videos and everything else. Thank you very much. But I'd like to ask a question. You might be seeing on your live chat. I'm always there. Most times I'm always online. The quick question is, someone said something about if your renewal date of taking an exam is quite near, that you should either wait till the renewal date has come, like, let's say, for example, A+ now is around January, right? I think so. So let's say, should you wait for like February to take the exam where the exam has already been renewed, so they have added new topics? Or you just take it right away? I didn't really get that explanation there.
Well, one of the things when you're talking about renewing a certification, and maybe a lot of people don't realize this, is that when you take your A+ exam, you've taken both exams, you pass your A+ exams or your Network Plus or your Security Plus or a number of other of the CompTIA exams, that certification is good for 3 years. The clock starts ticking right then, and now you have 3 years that certification is good. Before that 3 years is over, if you would like to continue to earn that certification for another 3 years, you have to renew it. You have to have some way to let everyone know that you're keeping up with the latest set of technologies and objectives for the exam. There's a lot of different ways to renew your certification. You can take the exams again. That sounds crazy, but some people do it, and it will renew your certification. If you waited until the next series of exams came along, you could, of course, take both of those A+ exams again. That seems a little extreme. Another way to do it is you collect CEUs. I mentioned the Continuing Education Unit Credits, or CEUs, earlier, and you get CEUs for performing different things. You can go to a webinar like this one, you earn CEUs. You go to a trade show, you earn CEUs. You teach a class, you earn CEUs. You take a class, you earn CEUs. You can also take and pass a third-party certification or even CompTIA certifications, and you can earn CEUs. So there's different ways to collect those CEUs, but there's also a maintenance fee you have to pay if that's the method that you're going to use to renew your CEUs. There are also some certifications that you could take from CompTIA that will also renew your existing cert. For example, if you have your A+ certification and you take and pass your Network Plus, it automatically renews your A+. So that's an easy one. You don't have to collect CEUs. You don't have to pay a maintenance fee every year. You just take an updated exam, a newer exam, a Network Plus exam, higher level exam, and that renews it. There are also a number of options online. CompTIA calls their Cert Master CE, Cert Master Continuing Education for the CE, where you can take an online application that will renew your existing certification. These applications, I don't know if they've updated the Security Plus one, but I know the A+ is currently up to date, so you can use that. So there's different ways to do this. The Cert Master CE is one that you could technically renew in just a few hours, and you would be in good shape. So never wait until the certification expires before renewing. Once your certification expires, that's it. It's over. You can't renew it. So if you waited 3 years and a day after getting your original certification, you would be out of luck. You would not be able to renew that cert because it is now expired. So those are the things you have to watch out for when dealing with renewals on your certification. And hopefully that will give you some perspective as to what you might want to work through, especially if you're trying to figure out, what do I do? There's so many different ways to do this. I do have a YouTube video called How to Renew Your A+ Network Plus or Security Plus certification in just a few hours. Just search for that on the YouTube. How to renew your A+ Network Plus or Security Plus certification in just a few hours. And I go through each one of those scenarios. And I give you pluses and minuses, advantages and disadvantages for each one of those, because they all do have advantages and disadvantages. If you take your Network Plus, it does not give you the A+. It will renew your A+ if you already have it. That's an important consideration. So keep that in mind as you go through this list. It doesn't give you anything. The only way to initially earn your A+ is to take the 2 A+ exams. That's it. There's no other way to get an A+ certification originally than to do that. I think most people, take, for example, the Security Plus exam. I think most people, when they get their exam and they have 3 years, that they use CEUs or a higher level exam. I think most people just keep renewing. I think very few people go back and take the full exam again. Now, one thing you may want to check on is CompTIA tends to change the different options you have for renewal. They tend to change every few years, it seems. For example, there are renewal exams available for certain certifications, so that if you already have, for instance, a Network Plus certification, you don't have to take the full Network Plus exam again to renew. They have an exam specifically written with the changes in it. So that's one of these things. And some of these things go away, then other options appear. So always, especially if you're watching this video on a replay, always check with the CompTIA website. There's a huge section on renewing your exam, because as you've just seen, there's tons of options available for renewing your exam. Some are good, some are bad, to be able to have that there. So that's what I would recommend doing, is find the one that works for you. What might be right for you might not be right for some. A man is born. He's a man of needs. Long come to. Got nothing but the chance. Whenever I start trying to figure out, does Linux Plus renew? I guess it depends on what version of Linux Plus you're working with. The new version of Linux Plus is one that is a CompTIA exam only. And did they decide to do a 3-year renewal on that? I'm trying to remember myself, since I don't do anything with Linux Plus. Let's go to the CompTIA website. I'll show you anyway where this happens to be. I can give you a view of this on the screen. Here we go. Here's the CompTIA website. Right at the top, continuing education. And they give you all of these different options for continuing education. Here, for instance, I told you can renew in just a few hours. They even tell you right at the top, need to renew quickly? Renew your certification now with CertMaster CE. And you can renew right now with CertMaster CE. But they give you all of these different ways to renew, and they kind of give you these 3 steps that you can go through to figure that piece out. Let's say that we wanted to choose a different renewal path for us. Let's choose a single activity, and we wanted to renew with a CompTIA certification that was a higher level, and Linux Plus, if we took it, it would fully renew the A+. Now, do we have to renew Linux Plus for this? I think we do these days, don't we? So there's a good idea. If you have A+ and Network Plus, does renewing the Network Plus renew both? Yes, it does. When you renew, and in fact, this is their sort of stack of certs, when you renew the highest level in this list, it automatically renews everything underneath it. So that gives you some perspective of renewing. Gosh, we could do a whole study group just on renewing certifications, it seems. Just an extensive list of those to be able to pull through. So go to the CompTIA website. They got details on all of those things you can step through and figure out the details. Let's go back to the phone calls quickly and go to this call. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello. Lovely to talk to you in person. Okay.
You're breaking up just a little bit. You might want to get closer to your mic or pick up a phone if that's where you are.
Can you hear me?
We can. What's your question?
Yeah, great. I have several questions, really. I've been just studying the A Plus straight off the bat. I'm studying Network Plus and Security Plus as well, and some other sort of peripheral qualifications.
Wow.
But it's very, very overwhelming coming from a complete sort of newbie background. If I keep ploughing through it as I do, is it going to get any easier, or shall I abandon all hope now?
Are you studying for all of these simultaneously?
No. So I've got the Security Plus is my aim for the next sort of couple of years, and I've started the A Plus. I've bought like a package of sort of study materials, and I've got the Network Plus and some various sort of configuring Windows stuff in there as well. But it starts off very, this is a keyboard, this is a mouse, this is a monitor,
yep.
and then we start getting in the sort of heavier stuff. And yeah, like I say, it's just a little overwhelming as a newbie, and I'm sort of kind of blindly pressing on in hope that, the more I study, the more it will make sense. And it is slowly coming together, bits and bobs. And thank you very much for your materials, because they're helping me a lot. But does it get easier? Is that like is there light at the end of the tunnel?
There is a light at the end of the tunnel, especially if you're coming from a place at the very beginning. They're kind of bringing you into this whole world of hardware and networking and security and operating systems, and you're troubleshooting operating systems and doing things you've never done in an OS before. The fortunate part about A+ is that they never go super deep with most of these topics. They give you kind of a broad brush, a broad overview of a lot of these things, and we don't have to go into the details of configuring and setting up Active Directory on Windows, for example. But what they do is put a lot of content in. And as you've seen, well, with A+ is a good example of this, is that you have the 1001 exam, which is a huge exam, and then you've got the 1002 exam, which is another huge exam. So that's why I even mentioned earlier, taking these one at a time becomes so important, because there's so many topics in a single exam set of objectives that there's no way, especially coming from a beginner's perspective, that you would ever want to learn all of this simultaneously. And that's why I tell people, yes, this does get a lot easier, especially in your case. You're going to be moving into Network Plus. You want to move into Security Plus. And what you'll find is there's a little bit of an overlap with those certifications as you go. You'll get into Network Plus, and you'll be talking about port numbers that you already memorized on your 1001 exam under the networking section. And then you get into Security Plus, and there's security topics that you already talked about when you were dealing with security on your 2201002 exam. Now, there's not a lot of overlap there, but there's a familiarity. And right now, when you're drinking from the fire hose, and there's just all of this is new, and you've never heard these topics before, and you're trying just to figure out where you're standing, it can be a little daunting. But then as you start to become more familiar with the nomenclature, you start to become more familiar with the style of questions and the type of topics you go through, you start hearing the same things over and over again. It does get a lot easier with the studies. So keep going through. If you're studying for A+ right now, keep going through your 220-1001. Only focus on the 220-1001. Only look at the 220-1001 exam objectives. That should be your sole focus. Get all of those topics down. Take the 1001 exam, and then you can shift gears to something else, and I think you'll do fine.
That's really reassuring. Thank you. Have I got time for a couple more questions?
Absolutely.
If I keep them short.
Sure.
So you very kindly gave me a bit of advice about Linux earlier this week, and I sort of started trying to boot it up from a USB drive, and I'm running Windows 7, and in the sort of BIOS, there's no specific command there to switch off the safe boot, is it?
Right.
And then trying to get it to boot from the actual sort of USB stick, just having sort of difficulties with that. It started going through it initially, and then it kind of like stalled. But I'm wondering, would it make a difference if I was using a crappy old USB stick, which I was?
It should. In fact, there should be an option. If you have a UE5 BIOS, there's most likely an option in there somewhere to turn off that safe boot functionality. It may be called something else in your BIOS, though. You may have to go back to the manufacturer and figure out, what do you call this? Where do I find it? Because there has to be some way to turn off that secure boot functionality for operating systems that aren't part of it. Or it may require a BIOS upgrade to do those things too, all of which are good things to learn how to do. But it does take a little bit of figuring out the right combination to get it running. I think it's worth doing that, because I think the easiest way to become more familiar with Linux without having to install it onto your computer, either in the same partition or into a separate partition, is just run it from a USB drive, especially if you're just trying to learn more about it right now, or just get a feel for the particular distribution that you have. I think it's worthwhile to find the right settings in your BIOS, make sure the USB drive is bootable. You're using the specialized utilities. Usually they'll take you through the utilities to use in your operating system to be able to create the bootable USB, because you can't just stick it on a USB and hope that it's going to work. You have to format the USB in a particular way. It has to be configured as a bootable USB. You have to tell the BIOS that this is compatible. Once you do all those things the right way, then finally Linux will boot and it'll be like magic. And in the meantime, you happen to learn something too.
Yeah, no, that's great. Rummaging around in there is great. And final question on a more sort of like highlight note. Do you game? And if you game, what are you playing at the moment?
Yeah, I do a little bit of game. Most of what I do is I sit in here during the day and I do a lot of writing and do a lot of content creation. But at the end of the day, I do like to sit down. I try to get away from the computer. So I do kind of gaming light, is that I go to my Xbox. The Xbox is key for me because I'm not sitting here straight up playing on the desktop side, although I have before with applications, with other games I used to run. Because I go back to the original World of Warcraft. I've done some EVE Online, but I just find myself wanting to get away from the computer and inside my studio at the end of the day. And I prefer to be in an easy chair and sitting back and relaxed with an Xbox controller, at least for a couple of hours. And what I've been doing most recently is probably Division 2. That's where I spend most of my time shooting people inside of that. It feels good at the end of the day to get out that anger that I don't know, I've created writing things. I don't know. I'm not angry, but that's what I like to do, is get into that. Sometimes I do a little bit of Diablo 3 on the Xbox. Nothing hardcore, nothing detailed, nothing twitchy. So I am not a Call of Duty Warzone type player, because the kids are much faster on response times than I am, and it just depresses me horribly. Yeah. So I prefer the PvE in Division 2. That's where I could tend to stick myself right now to see how that goes.
Cool. Right, thank you very much for entertaining my questions, and thanks again for all the study materials. And it's awesome to talk to you in person. I look forward to doing it again sometime. Absolutely.
I appreciate the call. Call back anytime. Love to have you here. That's one of those. It's one of those whenever you start getting into trying to balance things out. They were talking about balance in your life. That's how I balance, is I try to I call myself working half days. I do 8 to 8 in here. And then at 8 o'clock, I go over and hop on the Xbox until I get tired and then just go to bed. It's a good balance for me. It's a good way to get that frustration out at the end of the day. Work through those things. My kids my kids are grown up. They're in college. So one of them is now done with college. And they don't like playing what dad plays. So that's not cool. So they're doing their own thing, usually on a PC platform. Not interested in doing the Xbox gaming with dad. Maybe later on when they have their kids, they'll decide that's what they'd like to do and hang out with me online on the Xbox Live. And if anybody else is in Division 2 on Xbox, send me a note. I'll send you my gamer tag. Let's go to South Florida, 954. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
How you doing, Professor Messer? This is Kevin from Pembroke Pines.
Hey, Kevin in Pembroke Pines, Pines Boulevard, checking in. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. Right now, I'm on my break from my teleworking, working at Comcast business, and it's very rewarding because now all this stuff I pretty much know. I mean, like we doing about Metro Ethernet and SD-WAN and everything, nice. And I know like all this stuff. And my trainer is like shocked, like, how do you know so much? And I was like explaining to him, I got a CompTIA license, and Network Plus and A Plus. Now it's also mentioned about you as well too.
These are terms you've heard before.
And stuff like, yeah, they didn't know who you were, but I just said, yeah, you know.
It's not unusual, not uncommon.
Yeah, but we doing all this stuff and learning about SIP and learning about the primary rate interface and everything. And I'm just like, yeah, everything is very comprehensible. The only thing I have a problem with is really like some of the programs that we're using. But that's why you're in training. But everything is very comprehensible. I'm just like flying through it, you know, and whatnot.
This is one of the things I sometimes will run into on Network Plus, and it's hard to explain unless you've been in the industry and working with it. And I'll tell people, we'll talk about ISDN, and we'll talk about PRI and BRI and how these things are used. And people are saying, that is an old technology. Why are we having to learn these old technologies? And I say, because they're still out there. You're still going to run into them. People still have them installed. When you install some of these networks, especially for a business, it's a contractual installation. It may be for 1 year or 3 years. They go in place and then they just work. And if you're in a company and that project's over and that system is up and running and it works, the default answer most of the time is leave that alone. It's working fine. It's on this older connection, but who cares? It works. Let's just keep it running until we no longer need that system anymore. And it's hard for me to explain to people when they say, I have to learn all these older style things for Network Plus. And I go, oh no, you only think it's older style. You're going to walk into a data center and it's going to be sitting around for you to see. You'll be able to touch it because it's still running in those environments. Very common to run into that. And as it turns out now, I'm a client of yours because I have Comcast Business here. This live stream right now going out over my Comcast Business connection. And by the way, I've said this before, my Comcast Business guys here where I am are fantastic because whenever I run into a problem, they come right over with new equipment and plug it in. Even on a Sunday morning, I wake up, there's been a lightning strike or the power has gone out or something has happened. My modem or my router is out. They bring over another Cisco router and plug it in and keep me up and running. I love it, and that's why I've been running it here for years.
Yeah, I keep telling people that Comcast Business is a little bit different than residential. I mean, it have more features, and if for some certain reason Comcast prioritized their business way over their residential. I mean, for whatever reason. But the thing I was like really shocked about is like more and more that I'm like further in my IT career. I think I spoke to you about this, that I'm just shocked at how so many people in the IT industry are not tech savvy. And I mean, really not tech savvy. They like almost like they don't really know basic things. And it kind of amazes me about, you know, I guess they feel like, well, just because they got a good oratory, they feel like they could just, you know, fake it until they make it and get through. But it is amazing. I'm talking to people like one of my coworkers, she didn't even know she had an Android phone or iPhone. And we were trying to do like the multi-factor authentication and register our phone. And we were like asked about, you know, what, trying to like, you know, talk to her. And she was like, oh, I don't know about she had a Android phone or iPhone. I was just like, but how did you do the assessment test if you don't know basic stuff like this? Like, it's really amazing. I'm just realizing people are not that well edified in IT.
It's really, we have this perspective because we're in IT and that's sort of where we are day to day. But this is not unusual in any other line of work. If you go to look at people who repair cars, there are some that are extremely savvy and some that maybe are not really clear on exactly which side of the tire goes on first. You got the same problem with lawyers. I talk to lawyers. I have my own lawyers, and I've worked with other lawyers through the years. Some lawyers really know their stuff and are really good. Others maybe not so good with certain things. So you never, just because someone is in a particular job or is doing a particular job, doesn't necessarily mean they know everything about everything. And the thing that I think will help you as you recognize this in the industry is that there are places to keep moving up. There's always somewhere to go, at least as I'll talk specifically about IT, is that those people that are just kind of struggling and hanging on to figuring out, is it iOS or is it Android? They're probably going to still be there struggling and trying to figure it out. And that's a challenge for them until they finally decide they need to learn those things. But that gives you an opportunity. I always took this is my opportunity then to learn more about how to manage the multi-factor authentication system. How can I now learn to manage the service for the multi-factor authentication? How can I integrate that with the VPN technologies that we have? How do I get into the data center and connect all these SD-WAN circuits together and manage those routers? Those are the opportunities for you. So I don't worry so much about people that are just kind of struggling and hanging on, because there's people in many different levels in any type of vertical type environment, in transportation, in medical, in finance, and in IT. You can only do what you can do, and take it as an advantage for you that now you can start learning more things and keep moving up the line.
Well, yeah, but it's not only with the my coworkers, but also people in the administrative branch as well too. Like, for example, Comcast Business had this thing called Connection Pro, which is basically an out-of-band network. And I was telling my trainer, I said, well, basically this is an out-of-band network. They didn't know what I was talking about. They were looking at me like, out-of-band network? What? It's like when I'm talking to them, they look at me like I'm like Charlie Brown parents, where you the Charlie Brown cartoon, yeah, like that. And I'm like, they're like, what is that? I'm like, and I just like forget. I just like okay, whatever. I just get quiet and don't say nothing. I'm like, okay, you know. And these are trainers and supervisors, so. But
that's okay. And in fact, I think we have this perception in IT that the CIO of an organization should be just as technically knowledgeable as the people doing the firewall installations. But the goal, the job of the CIO and ostensibly the job of the supervisor that you're speaking of is not to do what you're doing. Their job is to manage everybody to do what needs to be done across the board. So in fact, I would not want the CIO to be as knowledgeable with firewall administration that the firewall administrator is, because he's got other things to worry about, or she has other things to worry about. They have to do a higher level perspective dealing with finance and the business and relationships and contracts and everything else that goes into that job. It's not a job I want. I'm not interested in being a CIO. I will never do that as part of my job. But I know that in my position, when I need something done on my Linux server, and I get in this situation where, do I want to do it, or do I want to hire someone else to do this for me? And I have to make that balancing act in my mind. It's not that I couldn't. If I spent enough time on it, I probably could. Or do I just hire somebody to do it in 30 minutes and get it done, and we keep things moving? And you get into that situation. But then I don't learn it if I don't do it. And I become dumber, I guess, by not doing it? Or am I smarter by having someone else do it who knows what they're doing? So I always tell technical people, don't worry that you know more than your boss. You're supposed to know more than your boss. You have a job and they're paying you a lot of money because you know more than your boss. Keep going with that. That is a good thing. And I always loved that job as the technical person. At one point, I moved into systems engineering management. I moved into IT management. I gave it a shot. I stuck my toe in the water and tried it out. I didn't like it so much. And I moved back to the technical side and enjoyed that much more because that fit who I was and what I wanted to do. Now, ultimately, I've now migrated into whatever this weird thing is that I'm doing here, which is not IT, and yet it is IT. It's not administration, and yet it is administration. It's not management, and yet it is management. But it's something that is a good mix for me. And I tell people, don't get angry at your admins or get angry at your managers that they don't know what I know. Of course they don't, and they don't want to, and they don't have time to. That's why you have a job. And you should be, that's your advantage. You should be happy about that. Be glad your manager doesn't know what you know so that you can keep having that job. That's why they keep you on the payroll. And it's also one of those situations where I don't fault them for that. I don't want them to have to worry about that. I'll take care of that piece. They can take care of that management piece for me and either keep the politics out of my world or make sure that I'm doing the things I should be doing always. And I think it's a good mix.
Well, that's a good way of looking at it. I try to look at it that way. But thank you for your time, all right?
Good to hear from you. Best of luck.
All right. Thank you.
Always good to hear from South Florida, place I used to live. 10 years in South Florida. My better half is from South Florida, born in Miami, raised in Hialeah, and is Canadian. How'd that work out? We've had that story before. Let's go back to the phones. The 914 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Tasha. I'm calling from Yonkers.
Hey, Tasha
How
from
you
Yonkers.
doing?
Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Okay. I've been wanting to take my A+ certificate for about 3 years. I bought the 220, 901, 902. It's sat in my drawer. I picked it up, put it back in there. Now,
I understand.
I said I had to. I bought the 220, 101, 1001, 1002. Now, I got that in the mail, and I'm looking at it, and it's like, oh my God, do you see how big it is? It's
Yep.
like double the size of the 901, 902. So last night, I'm like all over the place. I'm with you, and then I'm looking at Mike Myers. I'm looking at everybody. I'm like, I'm going to stick with Professor Mike. Stick with you. So I bought your objectives, the 1, the 2, and the practice test.
Right.
Now, my thing is, I'm looking all over the place, so I'm like, okay, so now I want to see, because my mind is all over the place, so I'm trying to figure out, do I start with one objective first and focus on that, because I'm finding the one, I want to take the 220-1002. I think I'm familiar with that, because when I look at the motherboard, the hardware of it, I'm like, okay, the CPU, yeah, that's the main heart of the computer. But that's scary right now.
Perfectly
I
reasonable.
want to get the work out the way, and I'm familiar with that. So now my thing is, do I break down? Do I go by the objectives one and then take it and go to 2? And how long should I stay on one objective?
These are the questions that are probably one of the most common ones is how do I study for this thing? It's so big, it is so broad, and there's so many different ways to approach this content. If you look at the exam objectives themselves are in a particular order. They start with for example, on the 1002, which by the way is a great idea. If you're more comfortable with operating systems, do the 1002 exam first. Why wouldn't you? You can do them in any order you would like. But the 1002 exam starts with the first set of objectives are understanding operating systems, and then understanding the difference between Windows 7 and Windows 8.1 and Windows 10, and how to install Windows. And then it goes from there down the list. Is that the right way to go about learning it? It's certainly a way to go about learning it. If you go look at what different books do, so for example, I'll bring up the list of study resources on my website, and I show you a list of books that are here, and each one of those books has a completely different structure. They follow a completely different path to get you from point A to point B, from the very beginning to the very end. And they follow this different path because the different authors of these books feel like there's a different story that they should be telling that helps you understand the content better. And very often the path that they choose is not the same path that's laid out in the CompTIA exam objectives. In fact, I think they have a good argument. I think in some cases, the CompTIA exam objectives are not a very good structure for learning because they don't start with the easiest and take you to the hardest. They just kind of put things in an order, and it may not be the best order for learning. So I tell people, find a good book that kind of speaks to you, that has a style of learning that you really like. I, for instance, liked some of the Dummies books for A+. I found that when I was first getting into A+, I found the Dummies books, they sounded better to me. They read better to me. I understood them better than other books did. Other people like the Mike Myers All-in-One book, even though it's an enormous tome. It's a huge book that you would have to know. Some people like the way that he writes. They like the style that he uses. So some people love the Cybex book that's here. And that's why I put these up here, because they're all very different. They all have a different voice. They all teach in a different way. And I think what you should do is go to Amazon. You can read through the first chapter of each one of these, see which one you like the best, and maybe use that as your guidebook through this. In each chapter of these books, they cross-reference what's covered in that chapter to the CompTIA exam objectives. So if the first chapter of their book deals with security, they'll tell you that this deals with section 2.1 of the exam objectives. And then you can go back to my videos and watch 2.1, and it matches the book that you happen to be reading, because every book is in a different order. So there's a couple of ways to approach it. If you were in the industry for a while and you were very familiar with these technologies already, then maybe using the exam objectives as your path, maybe that would fit better for what you're doing. But for most of us that are just trying to learn this from the very beginning, it's probably going to take a good book and following the path of the book, and then cross-referencing to other training materials like my videos to put all of those pieces together, and you just do it a chunk at a time. It doesn't matter what format you use. It doesn't matter which you do first or which you do second, as long as you just take it in little bite-sized chunks and take it a little step at a time and learn those exam objectives and check those off of your exam objective sheet, you're going to be fine.
Okay. All right. All right, that was pretty much it. Thank you so much.
Good luck, Tasha. It's a huge amount of content. It's so much material. Don't be overwhelmed at the breadth of how much is there. You're not going to go hugely deep on any of these things, but you do have to know a lot of different technologies across a very broad area for these. And I think it's a combination of those. As I mentioned on my page for study resources, there's videos, there's books, there's hands-on, there's Q&A. So there's always a combination of things that you should be using. It's never one thing. It's never just videos. It's never just hands-on. It's never just a book. I guess it could be, but you're limiting yourself. You're not giving yourself the best possible scenario for making that happen. So that's why I tell people, use as many different things as you can. I try to build my video courses as a standalone course. If you had nothing else, if there was no other resources available to you, my video course would give you all of the content you needed to pass the exam. But it's limiting you. You don't have any hands-on, you don't have any Q&A, you don't have a book to reference. It becomes a little bit more challenging. Add the other pieces to the mix. It's a big stew that you're making. Add more ingredients to the stew, and you're going to be in much better shape. Let's go back to the phone lines. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Eric calling from London. How are you?
Hello, Eric from London. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
I actually want to say thank you so much for your incredible content that I've used exclusively now to get my Security Plus certification and Network Plus certification literally just 3 days ago. I mean, it's incredible. I tried other content first. I tried with Mike Myers first. Didn't like it. I didn't think that was very well put together. And all your products that I used in conjunction with Daryl Gibson's the performance-based questions were just so on point.
Great.
That combination is an absolute winner for all these CompTIA exams. For me personally, might differ from one person to another, but I'm a first-year IT student, so I already got 2 certifications now from CompTIA, and I haven't even finished my first year in university.
Nice.
So I just want to say thank you so much.
Fantastic. Congratulations on that. So you're kind of going sort of the reverse direction that most people would go. Most people start with A+, then they do Network Plus, then they do Security Plus. In fact, the CompTIA website kind of recommends you do it in that order. But you now started with Security Plus. Now you've got Network Plus under your belt, which is fantastic. I think that's probably, of those 3, the best overall connect into everything type certification you can get. Are you also going to work now to keep going that direction and get the A+ certification?
No, I don't think I will get A+. I'm just not interested in sort of help desk, computer repair, overall sort of computer knowledge. I'm trying to go the cybersecurity way. I am actually studying to be a software engineer, so I would love to work in some kind of let's say, cybersecurity software production when I graduate. So
Gotcha.
I think the S Plus and M Plus have so much broadened my knowledge about real world of how things work and stuff. And I think I have a massive advantage now to my classmates. I've really gained that knowledge already. And I must say thank you so much for your content. It's just been absolute diamond. I just did not know where to start when I started studying, but once I found your content, it was all I needed was Daryl Gibson's performance-based questions, and that's it. Brilliant.
This is the idea, of course. I like to say that I did the easy part. You're the one that actually has to take the certification and go past them. That in many cases is the much harder part of this entire equation. But I'm glad you find the right combination for you. It kind of speaks to what we were talking about earlier from Tasha from Yonkers, who was trying to figure out what's the right combo. Once you find the right combination, I think it really does make all the difference. And I think your example's a very, very good one along those lines.
Absolutely. I mean, it was just an eye-opening because I struggle with other people's materials. I tried a lot of different materials, and as a matter of fact, I failed my first Security Plus exam before finding your content. And then I got really discouraged because that was my first CompTIA exam ever. So I failed it miserably. I mean, I say miserably. Then I found your content, and I sharpened up my skills. And I just got that money out of my student budget again to try again. A massive gamble, because if I lose the money again, which would be, for a student, horrible.
Right.
And I passed. I have to say I passed with 812 with Security Plus. So second try with your content. And then I figured out, I am going to do the Network Plus as well. So that kind of ties together nicely with the Security Plus information.
Absolutely.
All you need to know is the Ethernet standard, copper wiring speeds, and so on. And I passed it in 5 days ago, I suppose. So I'm really happy and grateful. Thank you so much, Professor Mez. I really appreciate it.
Glad to hear it. I appreciate the call, and best of luck.
Okay, thank you so much.
That's always it's the right combination, I think, that makes the big difference. Not everybody likes watching my videos, which is perfectly reasonable. Not everybody likes reading a particular person's book. Perfectly reasonable. Find the combination that works for you. There's no reason you should have to force yourself to read or watch or do any one of those particular things if it doesn't work for you. Find the one that works for you is the real key. From the chat room, how do I get access to your paid video content? You don't get it. I don't give you access to paid video content because I don't have paid video content. Every minute of every video I create is posted on YouTube for you to watch for free. There is no paid video content. Now, if you get my Success Bundle, I give you a download link for all of the videos so that you can watch them offline. Not everybody has access to YouTube. Some people would prefer not connecting to the internet to watch the videos. Sometimes they just want an audio version that they can listen to in their car when they're working out. That's what you get with my Success Bundle. But the videos are the same content. It's the same information on YouTube that you would download and have available just locally to your local machine. So I don't have subscriptions. I don't have things behind the scenes. Instead, what I try to do is create a video course that is completely comprehensive, that has everything in it, and I give you full access to it. There's no registration. There's no paywall. There's no extra content behind the scenes. It's everything. And then if you need notes, which you can make yourself, but if you want me to make the notes for you, you can buy the notes. So it's more of a freemium type scenario, but you're getting something for the money that you're spending. If you wanted to get my Success Bundle, you get offline version of the videos. You get audio files. You get some extra content I created, like my Exam Hacks ebook. You get the ability to send in questions for the study group that I will answer before anyone else, so that you know your question is going to be answered. So things like that you get as a bonus. But all the video stuff's for free. It's just there and available and always will. That seems to be working very well. I say always will because it just makes sense to have everything out there and available. I don't plan on ever making my video content private. This model works extremely well. People are able to get access to the material, which is the number one thing for me. And it is a fine business model too. It keeps the lights on. Everything's working fine here. So let's keep that party going. Let's keep that transfer of information, of content pushed out so that everybody has access to it. I can't imagine changing that. It's just working way too well. Everybody's getting the things they need to be able to pass their exams. That ultimately is the goal. I've often said on these study groups that my business is its primary objective. My mission statement is I want you to get a job or get a better job. That's it. None of that crazy corporate doublespeak. I want you to get a job or get a better job. That's our objective. So everything I do, that's what I'm working towards. Will this get you, as I'm working and putting things together in these projects I'm working on, and I come up with crazy ideas. What if we did this? What if we did that? Does that help people get a job or get a better job? No, it doesn't. All right, we're not going to do that. Let's do something else. Let's find something we can do that will help people with that process. Make it easier. Make it better to understand. And there's some neat things that we're doing behind the scenes to make that happen. We got more books coming out. We got more free videos coming out that are different than anything else we've ever done before. So that's important to me. That's a pretty piece for this. So, for example, if you wanted to get the course notes to help support the site, I have course notes for the Core 1 exam that are $20. I have course notes for the Core 2 exam that are $20. So you can decide what exam are you taking right now, find the right notes, and then you can purchase those. So that's it. Why are you apologizing? You don't have to apologize for anything. Everybody's good. There's nothing to apologize in my website, in my chat room. We're all good in the neighborhood. Let's go back to the phone. 734. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name's Daniel, calling from the Detroit area, roughly.
Detroit. How are you, Daniel? What can I do for you?
I'm doing good. I after a couple reschedules because of COVID, I was finally able to take Core 1 Monday and passed it. Real
Nice.
excited about that.
Did you do it in a testing center, or did you do it online?
I've scheduled 3 tests, and all were rescheduled because the testing centers were closed, so I had to do it online.
So what was overall, what was your impression of the online testing process?
Online was pretty straightforward. I mean, they make you, have a clean and empty environment and whatnot. And other than that, it was fine. Had to do a couple resolution changes and whatnot, but because of my studies, that was pretty straightforward. Command minus, and I was right there.
Perfect. Yeah, I could not take the exam here in the studio. They would not allow that. I'd have to find some other room to take it in. Well, I'm glad that worked perfect for you, and congratulations. This was your 1001, you say?
Yes, Core 1. Yeah.
So next is Core 2 for you. So is that the next step?
Absolutely. I got a couple questions for you. I mean, probably the pivotal thing was I got your course notes and the exam 1 practice exams. And I know you probably don't want to hear this question much, but when do you think you might be getting the Core 2 out? Because the first one was amazingly helpful. Those performance questions knocked those out of the park on the actual exam. Had no problems with those because of all of your practice exam material.
Great. It's one of those things where creating these books is something that takes not a week or two. It takes months to be able to produce these.
Oh, yeah.
I just got out the Core 1 practice exams book about a month ago. So now I'm working on the Core 2 practice exams book. And as I'm telling people when they send me emails about this saying, where is it? Because they're sort of in the same camp that you are, which is this helped a lot. Can we get more of this? My standard right now is I hope to have something available in the coming months. And I know that may not help a lot of you with your short-term plans for taking Core 2. But it's kind of like a construction project. It just takes a long time to build out and get this done. And I'm writing as fast as I can. But Core 2 is probably it's at least a couple of months away at this point.
Okay. And I guess my second question would be, I have, some college, but no degrees or anything and whatnot. And I've mostly worked in customer service. And I'm looking to get a job in the field, but I don't really know where to go from here after getting, the A+ certification. I mean, there's a fair amount of government work, so I imagine I'd need Security Plus around here. But other than that, I mean, I'm not really sure what the field is out there.
It's kind of in flux, I think, right now, too. It seems to be that way right now, because it seems to me that as people are now not going to college, they're not in the college where they used to be. They're not going to a school. Most colleges are online now for even the 4-year colleges. It's interesting to me that now people are trying to figure out, so what value do these really high-priced 4-year colleges provide me? So we're almost in this weird place culturally where we're reevaluating the type of education we're getting, where it's coming from. Because you need some type of education. It needs to be either a 4-year degree, which is a perfectly reasonable thing. A lot of employers would like a 4-year degree. Other people would prefer different kinds of knowledge. Some people say that the experience that you get on the job is just as valuable, in some cases maybe more so, than a formal degree might be. And some employers might absolutely feel that way. So this may be a case where you may want to feel out what the employers in your area are looking for. There's some huge employers in the Detroit area where now you can go around and see for an entry-level position, are they looking for a 4-year degree? For these government positions, are they looking for a 4-year or a 2-year degree? Do they want a certain type of experience? Do they want an industry certification to have that there? So you've now got a couple choices to choose from, and you need to kind of see what other people are looking for. And I wonder if these things are going to change over time in a very short time frame, if employers are going to think, maybe we were wrong about the whole 4-year degree thing. Maybe we should be taking a different combination of these. And this may be the impetus. A global pandemic may be the thing that changes our perspective of this forever. We'll have to see if that's going to be the case.
I have a mentor, per se, who's a family member who is a cloud computing specialist and has a 4-year degree. And he said a lot of the people he works with, the degree title doesn't matter. It matters that you have a degree and you know how to learn and know what you're talking about.
I think that's what most people consider a 4-year degree to be, is that you're teachable. That's kind of what it means. Yeah. I have a 4-year degree in business management, and every job I ever had in my career out of college was a very, very technical IT-related job. That really, I didn't do a lot of cost account. I did no cost accounting in my career. I did no business mathematics, detailed business calculus, which is what they made us take. I've done no calculus in my career. I've done no HR administration, at least no huge amount of that until I got into management. So there were all these things I learned in college, kind of as an overview of business, that I never ended up using maybe until now. It took my entire career to finally get to this point. But to do cloud computing, to do server administration, to do web administration, to do networking, to do data centers, I didn't need to know any of those things. But employers liked that I had a 4-year degree because in their minds, as you already mentioned, you're trainable, you're teachable, and in some ways you are a little well-rounded. You at least know a little bit about the classics, which I'm not sure helps or not. But you had mentioned earlier your background in customer service. I think a lot of IT is customer service. I think almost every job in IT is about communication, not communication over the network, but communication to other human beings. So we often don't think that the soft skills are as important as they turn out to be. But at one point in my career, my job was getting on a plane on Monday, flying to a city, doing a speech in front of a crowd, usually a trade show of some kind. So there'd be 200 people in the room, or there might be 20. And I do a presentation, and then I would go to the airport, hop on a plane, go to another city, do effectively the same presentation, maybe with some customization for what they're doing, hop on a plane, go to another city. I'd do that all week, and then I would go home. Like that was my job, was to get in front of people and explain to them about technology. There was not a lot technical in that job other than understanding the background. I happened to be, and that was a technical marketing position. But boy, that's a job where it helped if you knew how to talk to people. It helped if you could communicate very difficult subjects in a way that people could understand. And it helped if you were someone who could talk to people, who could look them in the eye and who could say, let me tell you a story. And those types of jobs are out there, and they'll take you around the world. It's not just about knowing how the ARP protocol works. Sometimes it's about knowing much larger perspective of what's going on, and skills, by the way, that you're not going to get with a 4-year degree, as it turns out.
Yeah, my current thought is, I have a little bit of panic with the pandemic, and you can kind of sense that there's going to be a big need for the IT field here very soon, and it's like, I need to do this now, and it's like you were said over and over again, about 3 months if you're not very familiar with this stuff.
That
Take
seems
your time,
to be the average.
don't rush through it. So it's like, I have that like burning, like I need to do this now. I don't have to go back to work for another week. And it's like, I don't know anything. I'm not a 4-year bachelor that's like, my employer is going, hey, you work here, we want you to get an A+ exam. You've done IT for 14 years. And it's like, we just want this for the checkbox. And it's like, they can do it in a week. I would kill myself to do it in a week.
I worked with a lot of people in my career in IT that had no formal post-education. They did not have a college degree. They did not have an AA degree. They did not have a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree. They had maybe in some cases, maybe a little college, but then didn't go anymore. And those people were just as capable, if not more capable, in some cases brilliant, than other people I worked with in IT who did have formal degrees. It's not always about the piece of paper. Sometimes the piece of paper enables you to do other things because people like that you have the piece of paper in your hand. But other places want your skill set. It may be even a little bit more difficult to explain to people how valuable you are without the paper, but there's plenty of people out there who are looking for valuable people. And at some point in your career, once you're past that first job, once you're past the second job, nobody actually asks for the 4-year degree information anymore. They don't care that much. What they want to know is, how capable are you at performing these functions? How skilled are you at knowing these technologies? And that's what the differentiating factor is going forward. It's just a little bit weird or different in our society how we interpret this for IT. It'd be different if we were a lawyer. If you were a lawyer, you really got to go to law school. If you want to be a doctor, you really got to go to medical school. You can't hop into a hospital and go, well, I just kind of figured this out on my own. Let's get that appendix out. That's not going to happen. But for IT, and I think this is why you often see with 4-year universities, for the big colleges, they don't have an IT degree. There is no such thing in most 4-year colleges. In the majority of 4-year colleges, there is no IT degree that you can get, because I don't think they know what to do with that. I don't think they understand what IT is. They tend to focus on computer science, which is not IT, has nothing to do with IT, has to do with computer science. So that's one of those cases where we still have to figure this out. We haven't figured it out yet. I don't have a good answer for you other than find out what employers are looking for, get as much of those things that they are looking for. And the best possible thing you can do in your career is to get to know people in this area where you work and keep up with them and get on their LinkedIn and make yourself visible to them and become friends with everybody you can in the industry. People tend to hire people they know much more than people who may be qualified for a certain thing. And the more people you know, the better off you're going to be in your career. That's the best thing I can tell you.
Yeah, because from what my mentor said, it's the degree is a check mark for HR. Getting to talk to people and having that experience is a lot more important. But HR usually is that like gatekeeper. But a lot of times, if you know someone in the industry, they can be like, hey, I know he doesn't have a 4-year degree, but he's the hardest worker I know, or he's going to be able to learn. Don't worry about it. He has some college. He has the certification. give them a shot.
You are absolutely correct. That's exactly how it works. And that's why I often tell people it's not a good advice now because of the situation we're in, but it will be good advice by the end of this year, which is go to these trade shows, meet people at your local user group, go to your Microsoft user group, go to your Cisco user group, learn where these people are, learn where they work, find out more about what they're doing, ask them about their jobs, ask them about the people they like to hire, find out about the projects they have going on, show interest in the things that they are doing, and it will be surprising to you how often you will run into these people in your industry year after year after year. In a particular geographical area, it's a small world, and you run into these same people over and over, and we all hop from company to company to company, and it's almost you almost have to have a chart telling you where everybody is right now. As it turns out, that chart's called LinkedIn. And knowing where these people are and knowing that you're a skill set that they could bring in if they need you becomes a very valuable thing. Make sure you know who they are, and that make sure that you not only know them, but they know who you are.
Yeah, especially because, initially you're the headhunter, but eventually you might want to have someone hunt for your head and get you a better job without having to do any of the legwork.
I've sent many messages to people over LinkedIn saying, hey, we're hiring for this particular position right now. I've worked with you in the past and you would be perfect for this. Let me know if you're interested. I have reached out to do that as someone just because I knew somebody and this might be something good for them. Happens all the time, Daniel.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Professor. I figure I should let other people talk too.
I appreciate the call. Thanks so much for calling in. And it's one of these topics that we go back and forth. We talk about in the study group all the time, which is where do we get a combination of these things and where does it make sense? And I don't have an answer about the 4-year degree. I have an answer about how to know people, how to network with people, and how important networking is. Not computer networking, people networking. People networking is really important. It's incredibly important in any industry, but I would say especially for us in IT, where a 4-year degree does not have this chiseled, structured perspective in the industry, because IT degrees don't generally exist. They exist in very particular vacuums, it seems. So that's where when we're trying to figure out how qualified someone is, the 4-year degree part may be not as important as it turns out industry certifications happen to be, because industry certifications go outside the scope of those 4-year degrees. Now you're somebody who understands operating systems or Cisco routers or Palo Alto Networks firewalls or whatever that technology is that you're working on. That's where people go, oh, well, you happen to know something about this. Let's see if you would be a good fit for what we're doing. And that's where it's different in IT. And that's why people will often say experience is so much more important than anything else. Well, it might be, but some employers may not want somebody experienced because they don't have the budget to pay somebody who's experienced. They want somebody who's hungry, who's just knowledgeable enough and can learn on the job. And sometimes that's the best fit for that particular job. Sometimes you can be overqualified for a position. And I know for a lot of people, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but it's actually true. You don't want to be overqualified for a position either. The employer is trying to find the right fit for you as much as you're trying to find the right employer for what you're trying to do. It's got to be a great combination of those two things to work through it. Let's go to one more call. Let's see if we can get to the 571. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Professor. This is Ada, and I'm calling from Germany.
Oh, thank you for calling. What can we do for you?
Yeah, I have a question because I just purchased the notes, both notes for the Core 2 and Core 1.
Thank you.
And I'm just thinking like, okay, I would rather get the physical book. So now I don't know in which case I can, or get like, I don't know, a kind of discount or like a coupon to go back and get the physical book.
Absolutely. So some of you have seen on my site, when I write a book, like my course notes, like the practice exams and the other books that I have, I have two flavors of it. I have a digital edition, which is the one that you purchased, Ada. It's the one that is a PDF file. You can download it immediately. It's on your desktop and you can work with it. But as also mentioned, there are physical books. So here's my Core 2 course notes in a book form. It's the same content that's in the PDF, but I just have it in a perfect bound, like a paperback book. It's high quality, heavy stock. It's printed in color. There's other advantages to having a physical book available. This physical book is one that you can also purchase. It costs a little bit more because it's physical and there's shipping costs involved because it's something I have to send to you. But if you've already purchased the digital version and you realize, oh, what I really wanted was the physical, just send me a note. Let me send it either when the contact us link at the top of the website, or if you're in your member login, you can open up a help desk ticket and just say, hey, can you send me a coupon? I will give you a coupon that discounts the physical book for the money you've already spent. So you're not paying extra to get the physical book. You're not out any extra money just because you got the digital one. So I will discount back what you've already spent on that. So I will ship internationally. So if you're in Germany, I will ship it to Germany. International shipping is it's kind of expensive, but I will absolutely send that if that's something you would like. Absolutely, sure.
My address will be like an APO address, so it's just going to cost
fantastic.
Like domestic.
So if you're military, I'm shipping the APO. That's even better. Obviously, shipping is already calculated when you check out, so it's a normal sort of a priority mail type shipping cost. And just let me know. Just send me the note. I'll create the coupon for you and send you a note right back. I can turn those around pretty quick. And so that when you get it, you can go, okay, you can process it right away and get your money's worth.
No problem. And you don't have any idea about, how long it's going to take to get to me, right?
Well, with anything that is the military post office, they're actually pretty good. They actually ship pretty good. I have a huge document that I use that is I integrated. I have an automated system that puts all of my tracking information in. I see where it's going, and the APO stuff tends to go pretty quick. In some cases, in many cases, faster than if I was to send it directly to that country through the traditional mail. Because there's customs and they have to check it at the border. There's also concerns with COVID. There's places I can't ship to. But with the APO stuff, it tends to go relatively quick. In some cases, it'll get to you in a week, if not maybe a little bit more than that. I tell people expect about 2 weeks. For international, sometimes 3 to 4, depending on how customs is going. But the APO tends to go pretty quick.
Okay. And my second question will be, because I'm done studying for the A+, I'm just waiting on an approval, notice from the military, education center to just go ahead and schedule for the test and take it. And I was aiming for the Network Plus. So I don't know if you think like it's a good idea for me to start studying for the Network Plus, or just wait till I get rid of the A+ before I go for it.
I always tell people one at a time is plenty. The single exams on their own are so much that you would have to go through that I tell people don't study for more than one exam at a time and try to cram all that into your brain. Stay completely focused on what you're doing. Use the exam objectives. They should be your checklist. You should be able to circle everything in that checklist that you don't know yet so that you know exactly what to go through. That's really, I think, everybody's best, highest percentage possibility of passing is to focus on one thing at a time. These are big exams, and spreading yourself too thin can absolutely be a thing. Try to focus on one thing before you start shifting to something else.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much.
I appreciate the call. Thanks, Ada. That's whenever I start trying to break it down in my world, I could not imagine studying for more than one of these exams at a time. I was just sending a note back and forth to somebody on Reddit who says, I have scheduled my exam, one on the 23rd and one on the 25th for A+. Thinking, what? What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind? And there's somebody who's never done any of these before. They don't know the technology. They've not worked with it before. They've never gone into it. And I told them, maybe you should focus on one at a time. It's your best possible chance. What you're trying to do is maximize a possibility of a passing score. And that's why I say your best possibility, one exam at a time. Get videos, get books, get hands-on, get Q&A. Focus on all those. Exam objectives, go through the objectives, get it done, take the exam. That's your best possible percentage of passing right there. So try to focus on that. Then once that's done, then you can shift gears, go to the next thing. I think that's a good way to approach it. I think that's probably the best possible one for most of us. Well, we kind of went into overtime on the after show, but I think we got through quite a few calls. Thank you, chat room. Thank you, callers, for calling in. We could not do it without you. And thanks for being here in the first hour, too. We couldn't have all of these questions answered unless you were here to answer them with us. So thanks for joining us on the live stream. We do one of these almost every week. We have one next week on Wednesday is our Network Plus study group. We'd love to have you come back and join us for Network Plus as well. I'll have all new questions. And of course, we'll have an all new after show as well. Hopefully be able to hear from you on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and other places throughout the week. Feel free to reach out at any time from the Contact Us link at the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. Thanks for being here, everybody. We will see you next time on the A Plus Study Group.